Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody to the meeting for October 13th of the Expanded Budget Committee for the 2021 budget. I just want to say hello, welcome everybody back from a long weekend. And I don't really have any opening remarks. Jason, do you have anything to start us off? All right, then let's dive in. Yeah, is that Mike? Yeah, Mike.
Just thought I'd give you a little bit of new news. Actually talked to Sandy Price in Cortland County Legislature this afternoon, and there was a committee meeting, and apparently the support for the TC3 budget passed their committee unanimously. Has to go to their full legislature.
You mean the advance payment?
I believe so. Yep.
For their, they were going to do 2 quarters of their 2021 payment. That's great news. That's good. Terrific. All right. Thank you, Mike. All right. Our first department is facilities, and that's Aurel Amaro, and it starts in your big book on page 66 in section 4. Welcome, Aurel. Now I'm looking and I don't see Aurel. There you are. Hi, Aurel. And you have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, good, great. And we got your screen.
Okay. So the recommended budget shows a target of $3,967,346 with an OTR one time and as well as a rollover, which totals $51,805 for a total.
Here.
Aurel, you're sort of mute. I mean, sort of fuzzy. Can you get a little closer to your screen?
Yes. Can you hear me any better?
I think that's a little better.
Okay. So with an OTR, the recommended budget is just over $4 million, which shows a change of $358,000 from last year's budget, basically an 8.2% reduction. Full-time equivalents has decreased from this year to 33. So a 1 FTE change or decrease. There's one OTR, which is a combination of one-time and rollover, which covers a HVAC maintenance fan, which was in this year's budget, the 2020 budget, but for cost reductions mid-year, we did not move forward with that one. And so it's included in next year's budget request as an over target request. Also some computers for replacing existing staff computers and $6,000. And then some additional funding in building repairs that we decreased to meet the reduced budget. But the county administration provided some funding via an OTR to cover building repairs to bring us close to what our
Rel, if you could try talking a little louder, it would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm talking pretty loud. Can you hear me any better?
That's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, so that, as I said, that OTR covers a maintenance van, some computer replacements, and also $45,000 in building repairs. And this, the description of that OTR, replaces a 12-year-old maintenance van for our HVAC systems technician, also replacement of staff computers, and also some funding for regular building repairs.
Looks pretty good.
That's the new one.
And that's it as far as my operating budget.
All right. Thanks very much, Aurel. If you want to take your screen off, we'll see if we've got any questions.
Okay. Let's see.
I see Rich John's hand up.
Hi, Rel. The picture you just showed us of the van, is that a new van or is that the existing one?
Yeah, the white one was the new one. For some reason, the graphic for the existing van didn't show up. I see it on my end, but it didn't show up on your end.
Okay, thanks.
Henry and then Deborah. Henry, you're muted. There you go.
Yep, I'm unmuted. Ralph, for the computers in the van, are those on replacement schedules?
They have not been, but county administration recommended that we do put it on a replacement schedule. The existing ones are about 5 years old.
What, computers are 5 years old?
Yes.
Okay. And so is this basically, are you planning on putting it on the schedule for next year, whatever?
Lost you, Henry. Say that again.
Is he planning on putting it on a replacement schedule in the future?
That is what Jason is recommending, that we do put them on a replacement schedule. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
It says on the OTR page from starting in 2022 to add target money. Deborah?
Yes, thank you, Martha. Hi, Arel, how are you?
Good.
I just had a question about the van. It's a rollover, and you mentioned that it was on schedule to be purchased this year, but you put it on hold because of COVID. So is this rollover 2020 money, or is it 2019 and prior money?
Good question. I'm not sure. Kevin might be.
Because my understanding was that all of our rollovers were going to be pre-2020.
Correct. This is certified 2019 rollover, Deborah.
Okay, thank you, Jason.
I believe the OTR also for this year was one time. It wasn't the use of rollover, which was why it was postponed.
Right.
Thanks.
The rollover page shows there's in 2019 more than 77,000 in rollover for this department.
Okay, great.
Ann Corman.
Thanks, Martha. Arel, I had a question. I don't know if it was answered in some other format regarding the cleaning operations supervisor being, it looks like it's not in the budget. Am I reading that wrong? But it's not in the budget for 2021?
Correct. It is not in the 2021 budget.
And so how are those 17 people going to be supervised?
Well, we have senior cleaners. We have two shifts, a day shift and a night shift. So we have senior cleaners that supervise each of those shifts. And then this cleaning operations supervisor, which we've had that position in the past, but it's been vacant for a little over 3 years, supervises the entire operation. And so we had planned to fill that position this year, but we held off on that. And then in conversation with Jason, we looking at the two positions that are vacant. One is the associate civil engineer, and this position, the cleaning operations supervisor. It was determined that it was more important to fill the associate civil engineer at this point. Alan Lockett, our deputy director, has been performing some of those supervisory functions for the cleaning operations at this point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Ariel, I have one about it goes back to the line for automotive equipment. I see on your, in our book, it's page 68. There's a line of automotive equipment. In 2018, it's 0. In 2019, it's about 33,000. 2020 modified was 97,000. So is that's a lot of fluctuation. Is that the line that you're proposing kind of rebuild as something on the target level? Something
Yes, the automotive equipment includes a few other categories, but the principal category is basically vehicles. And so, yes, that would have been, for this year, it would have been the maintenance van and then replacement of my vehicle and one other vehicle. So we basically postponed 2 vehicle purchases this year. And for next year, the only one that we're proposing is that maintenance van, which would fall under that automotive equipment.
And so what is, so then you talk about building up 30,000 a year over the next 3 years. So do you saying like the target ongoing number should be about 90,000? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think in conversations with Jason is that we would set aside 30,000 a year to create basically a reserve account for vehicles because we're not replacing every year. We're not replacing a vehicle every year. It depends on the replacement schedule. But for the most part now, I think we're caught up probably for the next 2, possibly 3 years before having to purchase another vehicle.
So going forward, what's the number that you think would be a stable and realistic number? How many vehicles do you have?
We've got like 15 vehicles.
Okay. So I don't know if this is a Jason question. What was the intention of that line there? What's
The
your,
intention is that over the next several years, you would increase it by 30,000 a year, because keep in mind, you have building maintenance money in there too, as well as equipment. So we took it out of target, offset it with one time, and then slowly over time, you incorporate it back into target.
okay, so that's a mix of things, but then ongoing, you're looking for about 90,000.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, Earl. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Right, you too. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very, very much. I see we have Jeff Smith with us, our highway manager. Highway and highway machinery begin on page 4-89. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
We can see that.
Good. There we go. So our slide presentation, we'll start off with that. Here's our opening pages for highway and highway machinery 21 budget presentation.
Can you make this into the slide version or the slideshow version?
I'm
So we only see the
sharing.
one. Move your cursor.
Presentation mode.
Presentation
Oh, it's-
out of slideshow or? Oh, it disappeared.
There we go. I can. It's not
Great.
coming up.
That's better.
That's good.
That's better. Okay. Let me just slide you out of the way a little bit so I can see all the numbers. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep, you're great.
Everyone? All right, this is the recommended budget. Both budgets you're seeing here, highway and highway machinery. The top is highway. It appears that you'll notice over in the right-hand column is a large percentage of change, the 24%. You'll see that in the next highway machinery budget as well. That is really due to OTRs. The 2020 budget we're in presently, we had about in total about 700,000 in OTRs. The amount of a 12% of the original base budget is about 700,000. So you double the 12% twice, you got about 24. So I was checking math here a few minutes ago, making sure that came in line, and it did for me as well. Same goes with highway machinery. There were OTRs or in the equipment areas. That's a smaller budget, so it's a little bit larger amount. But I think if you were to check the unmodified 2020 budget and then compare it to this year's target, you'd see a 12% change as requested. Moving right along, we have a capital project plan. This just shows the projects in process and then coming up in future years. These are all in different stages of design, bidding, and construction. If you look at the key federal aid projects is in light blue. That's coming up next year. Bridge New York projects are also due to come closer in design. I'll definitely know more next year. We have been preparing our capital plan to take into account these projects. And then the light green are projects that are presently under construction at this time. Both projects are progressing and on schedule at this time. Ludlowville Bridge in Lansing and Ellis Hollow Phase 3 is also, they'll be paving that road and they'll be striping it right after later this week. Highway roadwork plan for next year. I'm not going to go around each one, but certainly can use this map and get to me after. This is a draft. I want to point out the note at the bottom that in addition to these paving of roads, these are roads that are shown on here are maintenance paving, where we go in ahead of time, improve drainage and replace culverts, cut back right of way, that sort of thing. And then in addition to the note at the bottom, our goal is to do approximately at the minimum 20 miles a year of chip seal surface treatment, which is a preservation aspect. And along those lines, I'll move on to the next slide. That part of our improvement plan is critical in order to maintain our system pavement quality. Please realize that 2020, the number of 78 is actually what we did in 2019. Those are evaluated in the springtime. That's what produces that number. So we are seeing an improvement, which is good. And we want to continue along either that flat or increasing or improving trend. The support from you folks, the way that we select our roads using this this process, and then keeping the preservation of the chip seal is key to this continuing to improve. Full-time equivalents, some explanation is needed here too. Glancing at the numbers, they're a little confusing. If you recall, what you really should look at is the 2019 number that in highway of 3594, we cut 2 positions going forward into 2021. That is now 3394. It's higher this year by 4.5 FTEs. And that is due to the 6 public works apprentice positions that we had planned on that was in an OTR as well. Moving forward, it was very unfortunate, but in discussion with the town and the city, it wasn't unable to be moved along into next year's budget. We're hoping to revisit that as things get into normal and we start to really know and be able to forecast future budgets, and that it's a very important program. Just moving down to highway machinery FTE, I have no idea what 6.99 is in 2019. That should be 6. It's always been 6. Unfortunately, we cut 1 position in that area down to 5. So our total actual full-time positions across the highway department, we've cut 3 positions going into next year. And that's all I have. And I'm happy to try and answer all of your questions.
Thanks very much, Jeff. I see 2 hands. I think Deborah was first and then Rich. And Jeff, if you can.
Yeah, I've got myself unmuted.
Oh,
Sorry.
sure, got it.
Thank you, Jeff. I have some questions, actually 3 of them. I noticed that the net local share in the budget book is 0 for your department. And I also noticed that back in 2019, I guess, it was a little over $1 million. And I'm trying to understand how we got back down to 0. You know, I'm happy with that, but how did you?
Traditionally, that was a Jason question. It's a way that our budgets are funded. They aren't funded from the general fund. They're funded outside, so that it doesn't show as a local funded in the highway department.
Yeah, I know that most of your projects are like 90% federal, 5% state, 5% local. I just wondered where the local piece went for next year. I also noticed that you had included in next year's budget about 2.5 million in state aid. Are we sure we're going to get that, given how broke the state is?
Yes, because the state aid is, well, I believe you're referring to CHIPS in that case, and you're correct in saying we're not sure. That's something that we monitor with the state budget in the spring, and usually we have a pretty good idea. That would impact our paving program considerably. As you know, probably this year, in 2020, it was cut 20%. Generally, there's 3 pieces to that. One of those pieces is called extreme winter recovery money. The state budget did give us all those pieces, those 3 pieces, but the amount of the 20% is about the same as the extreme winter recovery. And generally that gets added about halfway through the budget process. It doesn't show up in this budget. So what I'm trying to say is the impact of the 20% cut this year, we didn't feel so much because we hadn't added that extreme winter recovery money yet. So we were able to, utilizing our other maintenance bond funds, get an early start, and we've had a pretty, it was a slower start than normal. We've had a pretty good start. We've gotten a lot of work done, and the state budget is definitely an impact. We don't know what they're going to fund next year, but we're anticipating, unfortunately, at minimum, another 20% cut, which as that rolls out, it will affect that paving plan, and the impact when that happens, I will update the committee and the legislature at that time.
So if there's a cut, it'll impact your paving plan, not our budget.
Correct.
Okay.
The changes would be made as the year, as we know. What I'm planning for in the budget, that revenue from the state is shown in there to balance our budget. If they start cutting that back, then we have to make changes on our expenditure to make sure that we don't overspend, so that we're still within a balanced budget.
Thank you. That's very comforting.
Hopefully we get all of it and we don't have to cut any.
I hope so too.
It's John.
Hi, Jeff. I'm sorry to see the apprenticeship program put on the back burner. I hope it comes back because I thought it was a great idea. I'm curious if any, my recollection is that the purpose was to do training and to try to move some of these people into jobs, permanent jobs with either the county, the city, or the town. Did any of them make it through?
There are one that I know of that has a full-time position at the city from our first year Public Works Apprentice program. There were 3 candidates that year. This year, we started with 6. I'm not sure where they all are at this time. I believe there is one in that out of that 6 that was already employed at the town of Ithaca, and that person was able to get that position back, and they're there. So I'm not sure. I have not been in touch with the other 5. I do plan on reaching out to them. We do have a seasonal positions here that is funded again going forward, very necessary. And I do have plans to reach out to those candidates, make sure that they're aware and that they apply. And we, hopefully we can get them coming in here and getting some experience.
Okay, thanks.
Annie and then Anna.
Thank you, Martha. Jeff, I think you've already said this before, probably, but for the 3 positions, the 3 people that you're losing, were they early retirement, or can you tell us more about that?
One position was a retired position. Another one out of the 3 was able to find employment at another department within the county. And an additional, the 3 of 3 positions has found employment outside the county at a private company locally.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Anna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jeff, for all of your work.
Anna, look, you're awfully quiet.
Well, we'll see if this is any better. Is that any better?
That's better.
Excellent. So thank you for all of your work on this, Jeff. I know this is not easy. I wanted to bring it back to the apprenticeship program for a moment and check, I'm just outside the box thinking because it's such a great program. I too hate to see it go, even temporarily, in any way. And I was curious if you had conversations with Workforce Development Board to see if there's any possible way or funding or program that you could partner with, that the program could be supported through that mechanism. Or I know URO has also been working on a lot of reentry beyond the box efforts. And I was curious to see if there's something that could be done with the community to take over any parts of support of that. So I'm just curious outside the box.
Yeah, I have not reached out to those. I wasn't aware of that option. But, we did talk, I did talk with city and town officials multiple times, and we tried to see how it would work and how we could make it work. And with all the cuts and the unknowns at both, all 3 municipalities, it was hard at the time at the submission of budget to really make it work. I didn't think that beyond that, it was something that we would handle, but it's definitely something that we're all very committed to and look forward to getting funding in the future. And as I said, we're, in some ways, I feel pretty confident that I'm going to be able to offer some positions to those people if they're still looking and willing to work. But we do have, at the county, we've always had a seasonal group of employees that we really reach out, and that outreach is going to even be broader this year now that I'm more aware of some other avenues to look for that I've learned through the Public Works Apprenticeship Program.
Great, thank you.
Jeff, were those apprenticeships for a full year, or were they just sort of the construction season?
They were 9 months, and they were 2 people, 3 months per municipality, and they rotated to give them that broad public works kind of work environment.
Okay. Shauna?
Yeah, I'm hoping I didn't miss this, but can you tell us how much that program cost the county?
Yeah, the total funding aspect OTR that's not there now was 120,000. It was that divided by 3, so it was 40,000 per municipality. So we were anticipating, we front funded it all up front. They were all county county employees, and then we worked through a reimbursement process with the other. So, I mean, to answer your question specifically, it would have been 40,000 expenditure to the county, but we upfronted 120, expecting the 80 coming from 40 from the city and 40 from the town.
So are the town and the city no longer doing the program as well?
Correct.
Okay. And were there any other reasons other than funding that this program was not renewed? Was it a difficult program to manage? Were there any other reasons? Okay.
It was only funding. That was the only reason. We're hoping to get it started next year. We're really all the group. This was a joint effort. It was years in the making. It started with 3 positions. It grew double size to 6 for the 2020 year. The environment that came upon us was unseen, and so that we kind of terminated the project. But I believe that everyone's very committed to getting it started again, moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Henry Grandison?
Yeah. Did you guys ever consider going forth with just the county's 40,000 and just having 2 people?
No, it wasn't considered. The idea is that they get that rotation, and the whole basis of the program involved that rotation between the 3 municipalities and seeing some of the work, the type of work the city does, the town, and then the county. Again, I'm hoping to, and we can offer a smaller version of what the county does through our seasonal program, and I'm hoping to do that.
Okay, how would that work?
We hire seasonals that are budgeted that help us on road crews.
Right.
We look to fill those positions for anywhere from, there's different lengths of time, but usually at least 9 months. I am going to reach out to the Public Works apprentices that we weren't able to come back or had to have the program terminated, and see if they're still willing to come to work for us. They'll need to apply and whatnot. It's an ongoing program. Every summer we hire seasonal positions. They are very important to our operation. They flag, but they don't just flag. They do a lot of other things. It's usually an entry-level position. We do offer, if there's some back and forth, and the candidate has to be willing to have some expense as far as taking a CDL interim permit test, things like that. We do have and have had in the past a very successful program for those individual seasonals to obtain a CDL driver's license, which is as you have probably heard and can understand, a huge accomplishment. That is something we offer to our seasonal positions. As well, we could show them somewhat of a rotation around the department, work with our mechanics, work with our engineers, work in the sign shop, work, within our maintenance area. We have some specialties on the bridge side. We have some welder kind of apprentice kind of thing. They could be working with our welders, that sort of thing. Kind of shift their position around while they're here for that period of time. Similar to the Public Works apprentice idea, only that they wouldn't be leaving the highway department to travel to the city and the town. They wouldn't be getting that, but they would be getting a flavor of kind of what we do here. This isn't something we've done in the past. Typically, those seasonals would come in, they would work with a crew and do whatever was asked of them, and they wouldn't necessarily get that wide-ranging exposure. But what I'm saying is we're able to, and with the termination of that program, I want to carry that forward the best that the county can and do that within and this is in the early stages. I haven't really thought through everything. There may be some other departments in the county that we could rotate them through, but I haven't had time to visit that. But I know at least within our highway department, we're able to do that.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Jeff, one other question I have that you said your goal is 20 miles a year of chip sealing. What do you think that we will have gotten done at the end of this season of 2020?
We did chip sealing early this year, and I think we did 17 or 18 miles.
Okay.
Martha?
Close. Yeah, Mike Lane.
Hi, Jeff. Wondered what you're hearing about material prices. Are they staying steady? Are they going up, going down? What's happening?
Yeah, I don't really have a good idea on that. I do know the cost of lumber is very expensive. Certainly plywood, things like that. to say that oil or asphalt prices, I'm really not sure what the forecast is. I know that, throughout this season, the oil price has dropped. We have an escalation when we're purchasing asphalt, and it really continued to drop, which is out of the ordinary. Normally it goes up in the summer. My sense is that I think that will probably stay about level. I don't know that it'll necessarily decrease much more. And hopefully the price of asphalt stays the same and can continue to be at a good level next season. But again, that's a monthly thing. It's on, it's a world economy, barrels of oil, base price. I know seems like the gas prices at the pump have remained pretty solid, pretty stagnant. So I hope that the oil follows that.
Okay, are we locked in on any like fuel contracts for long term, or?
We buy our diesel and gasoline off the state contract price. That has not moved at all. I don't know when the contract is up. I do know that we'll be getting a salt price very soon, and I'd have to share that. I don't know what the price is. Normally it's this month, and we are actually expecting it any day for this coming season.
I know that we're able now, we passed a resolution a year or so ago allowing us to bid off of anybody's contracts. Do we have a way of keeping track of whether there's something cheaper than state contract out there?
Very often my county highway my state county highway association is on a listserv, and that doesn't necessarily reach into every aspect of bidding, but normally if prices come in overly high, we hear about it. And it's not just Tompkins County, it's across the state where people are always looking for a better deal and the ability to piggyback. So the answer is yes, we do tap into that quite often. We use Erie County, we use Onondaga County, we use Oneida County contracts for many of our purchases. And then still the state contract's pretty good too. The salt state contract is you are locked in. You do have to buy, you have to tell them up front the quantity you want, and then there's a certain percentage, 70%, that you have to buy for whatever the price is annually. So that's a little bit harder to float from one contract to another, but some of the other contracts, fuel and whatnot, you are able to piggyback right into.
Thanks for that.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Any other questions from anyone? All right, thanks very much for managing a very big budget here. Appreciate it.
Been fun. Thank you.
Yeah. Next department, recycling and materials management. That is page 158 in our big book. And Barb Ekstrom, hello.
Okay, hello, and I want to thank Jeremy. He is our communications coordinator. He's helping me in my weakest part, I think, of this whole presentation, which is displaying it and moving forward. Okay, so why don't we go to the recommended budget
Barb,
page?
can you get us to where we have one screen? Just the slide presentation?
I don't know what you mean.
We're seeing the slides on the side of the screen as well, so that it'll end up being as
Okay,
large.
Jeremy, can you help me with that?
We just want to see the main screen.
Sorry about that, everyone. I used two displays and I didn't realize that would be an issue. Just 1 second.
It's just when you get to the number slides, it's hard for us old folks to read them.
Yeah, trust me, I understand what you're talking about.
Hopefully that's better now.
No, it's the same. Is there a?
Same.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
All right, go ahead.
Why don't we go to the next slide, and let me get this going while Jeremy figures out the other piece.
Go ahead.
Okay, Jeremy, next slide, recommended budget, please.
How's that?
That hasn't moved.
We aren't moving to the next slide.
Right.
Okay.
Are you using a PDF or PowerPoint?
I am doing it off PowerPoint.
What
Is
is
that
there?
any better? I don't know why this is happening.
Okay. Well, why don't we just not worry about the left side so we
Well,
don't
now we don't see anything.
time, right? And I was going to finish by saying, can you put us back to where you were and move the presentation forward?
Yes.
That would be wonderful. I guess we gotta learn more about this. Are you putting the presentation back up?
You don't currently see it, do you? Okay.
No, we don't. Okay, it's starting to share.
There we
look
go.
at that.
All right, that's
Woohoo.
what
Hey,
My apologies, everyone.
Jeremy does do well under pressure, I will say.
we're-
Okay, so let me just summarize by saying that there's a lot behind all these numbers. And yes, the total expenditure has gone down slightly and the revenue has also gone down. Just remember, when it comes to revenues, the lines, I mean, we're an enterprise fund, don't take money from property taxes and haven't for very many years. The revenues primarily include the disposal fee, the punch cards and coupons that we sell for people to come and bring their trash, the annual solid waste fee, which pays for non-disposal costs, and the recycling revenue, which is ever so small in the last number of years and is certainly not getting better, a small portion of grants, and then some other miscellaneous charges. Expenditures, again, 75% of my budget consists, as you probably saw in the budget book, of numerous number of contracts that range from a few $100s to a few $1 million. There's probably about at least 50 of those. The 20% of the budget is staff, and the rest is either a little bit of equipment or the capital set aside, the amortized capital costs. Next slide, please. What you can see here, and if you even look further back, it's been a steady minor reduction in equivalents. What we've been able to do, the work doesn't get any less, it gets more, but what we've been able to do is really take advantage of performance measures and look at ways to make our department more efficient, a little more cross-training. And we did reduce our staff count by 0.4. And what that was one person wanted to go to less hours. They were at 30 and they wanted to go to 20. We allowed that. And then another person who was virtually, well, it was her second job after retirement, who was in her early 70s, really got quite frightened with COVID and really didn't want to come back. And she's been furloughed. And what we've been able to do is bring 2 other people from our office in a small way back into the 56-hour-a-week operation of the scale house. And again, you know, these kinds of efficiencies. Next slide, please. All right, yeah. You know, there's a lot to talk about here. Our annual fee, we recommended that going up. We anticipated some increase in the new recycling center contract, which we're in the process of. We finished our review. We're in the process of negotiating. And, you know, you'll see in the summary that we're handing out tomorrow for the F&I meeting that there's a lot more expense there that we're going to be doing our best to negotiate in the next couple of weeks. But at the moment, what we put in was an anticipated revised processing cost, which we did a survey of 7 other counties and looked at what that average was going to be. And it's quite a bit more. You can see that in the annual fee. Colleges also go up accordingly, as do all the other factors. Disposal fees going up. Once again, the two factors are increases in annual costs from the operations and also ever declining, slowly but surely declining tonnage coming to this facility in trash, which again drives up that fee. That's a very minor part of it though. Punch cards have been the same for many, many years, but the cost of disposal over the last few years has gone up quite a bit. We reflected that in our disposal fees, but we didn't reflect that in the last 2 years it's been about 10 years since the punch cards have been about $12. So we're recommending that go up to $3 a bag, which is much, much cheaper than what haulers are charging. Commercial single stream recycling, just to give you a sense, the cost that you're seeing in this budget has gone from $60 to $90 and per ton. And this commercial charge for either the colleges or the haulers is increasing. One thing to remember, there has been a huge impact from COVID on our budget as a result of not getting a lot of tons coming in the door last year. And we're dealing with all those losses and fees. We did a lot of data analysis for the electronics, and we found that we could lower that cost for next year. All right, those are the changes. Next item. This is really the most important part of my presentation, and it really summarizes a zillion line items and will give you a picture of what it is the annual fee is paying for. And what you'll notice here right away is you'll look at so we roughly $3.8 million of the $6.5 million is collected from annual fee charges in a number of categories, ranging from residential to commercial to colleges, etc. And the remainder is from the disposal fee. What we're dealing with, if you look at it, is, I'd say, a pretty good situation compared to the rest of the state and the rest of the country. Our cost for recycling collection is approximately $30 a ton here. And we're doing a benchmark study on this, but the looking that I've done and what I've known over the years and talking to others, this is typically a monthly fee and not an annual fee that people are paying. It's either hidden in the property taxes or it's what a customer is being charged by a hauler. The best decision this county ever made was deciding that we were going to be in charge of the recycling collection, bid that out, even though we had a substantial increase, and offered to our residents across the board. And there's equity in there, and there is savings because the hauler is going from one house to another in the county, and there's a lot of efficiency there. So it is a really good thing. The cost of the recycling center based on pre-proposal is $17. Now take a look at that. That is $46 a year that our residents are paying. And this is not just the recycling center and the capital cost and the operating costs in the recycling collection. It's our food scrap drop spots. It's our staff that provide education and, and everything that goes with that. $46 a year, as much as I hate to say it, is a really wonderful price. We offer so much at the drop spot that nobody comes even close to those offerings. So I just wanted to make you aware of that as you consider my budget. Then, of course, we have programs for waste reduction that we do. There's partnerships, with some other folks that we work with on those. We still are maintaining and monitoring old landfills. And one of the reasons we established that fund balance, the 10% fund balance originally, was in case there was pollution, in case there were things going on. And these landfills haven't died. The pollution is less. Jason asked me for a whole rendition that I gave him about what goes on at these old landfills and how do we know that something catastrophic wouldn't happen? But again, that's because we monitor and maintain, we use a consultant, and part of it is what we do as well. I have a staff person that has, I'd say, about a third to half of his job, Nate Bates, is working on these old landfills. Administration includes a number of salaries, including a good chunk of mine, as well as the reception. We take about 120,000 customers a year coming through our office one way or the other. We have, different ways that people can take advantage of our services. We also pay the city of Ithaca in lieu of taxes, water and sewer and many other things that were negotiated. And yeah, that's the gist of that. We have 6 collections a year for household hazardous waste. They're offered to residents at no charge. We also take small quantity generators from small businesses. Again, this is the full pie. This tells you what is going on in this department. Is there another slide? I think we're done. Yep, we are done. So that is my presentation, and we will be coming to the committee with a summary of what's going on with the recycling center, finishing up negotiations, and coming back to you over the course of November with more on that. But Jason, is there anything I forgot?
I don't think so, Barb. This is a good pie chart, kind of explains, the breakdown of the fee. So I think you did good. It's been a tough two or 3 years with the budget and the fallout.
Yeah,
of this.
it's been really hard. And I mean, I'm feeling fortunate so far that we could keep the staff doing the 4R programs, to continue to lower on a grassroots basis with the types of education we do. We've gotten ourselves involved with Deb's committee on doing environmental product procurement work with the plastic bag ban. And I think that the main thing is we keep abreast of what's going on the national level, on the state level. We're definitely looked at as leaders, but again, it is really not it's gone down. I do predict that within the next 16 to 24 months, that the recycling market for cardboard might just start to go up with some of the new domestic mills that are coming to us. But again, in our 5-year budget that we have drafted, we're not even planning on that. Grants, we have been fortunate to get some grant money for education from the state. But again, like many other departments, I just don't feel like we can count on it. So, we might have put some money in the budget. So far, so good this year. But, again, it's not steady state with the state by any stretch.
All right, thank you very much, Barb.
You're welcome.
Before you take the slides off, Jeremy, could you, oh, well. All right, I might come back with my.
You can put them back up. That's not a big deal.
All right, that's all right. Hold off for now. We got Rich and then Henry.
Hi, Barb. How you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yep. I had a question on the last slide. Sorry, it just got pulled down. But I was adding it up. I got to $59. And I was wondering, is there another $6 that's allocated somewhere?
Hang on, I've got it. I've got a copy in front of me. Oh, I hope that's not the case. 2, 7, 11, 13. Oh God, what did we do here? Oh boy.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
I don't care. I mean, I've been here. This is my 34th year. There might be something wrong with this picture, eh?
But I assume it's close.
No.
Conceptually, you get the point, right? I mean,
Jason's probably going to rag me after this, but all I can tell you is that for some reason, when I was looking at this slide, I had thought that the recycling collection added up to $51. So let me do this. I promise you that we will correct this immediately tomorrow. You will get another version of it. And I know I owe you now. This is so
Not
bad.
a problem. Not a problem, Barb.
All right, but Rich, thank you for bringing it up now and not later.
Okay.
Was that, Rich, that was actually your question? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that was my question too.
Okay, Barbara, remember that the slides will go on to the county's budget
We're
page.
going to correct these immediately.
Okay, so Jeremy, if you could get back the slide where you had, I was looking at the college fee. And I had down here that it went from
241 to 263.
Yeah, now is that negotiated? Is that kind of according to like?
Okay, so it was negotiated based on a formula that included a number of different pieces. Okay, it included it includes a percentage of their contribution in tonnages across different places to the total amount, and it included old landfills. It included the disposal debt service. It includes all of recycling and half of administration. And it needs to be relooked at, but when you look at it and what they're paying, I mean, it works the same way as the residential fee typically, in terms of it increasing when the residential fee increases.
Okay, and so this is IC and TC3 as well as?
It's IC, TC3, Cornell, BOCES, it's all the schools, okay? And yeah, and it's based on tonnages, percentages, and the actual amount of what's in our budget.
Okay, thank you. How's your fund balance? And I guess also with the slides, Jeremy, thank you.
How's our fund balance? It's fine. It's great. It rests at about, I haven't gotten the most recent number from Rick, but it's approximately going to be $1.9 million at the end of the year. It's good, Jason wanted us to make sure we had an 18% fund balance. I have a feeling we're going to wind up needing to look at that fund balance for capital expenses, because I haven't even talked about the capital improvements that are going to have to be made at the facility. I mean, we've got a 25-year-old facility, and there are things that are going to have to be done. I'll tell you straight out that what I'm looking at for this next 5-year contract is much, much simpler. We're going to go back to some basics here of what once was. And, we're really not looking at being able to afford all of the different functions and all of the different materials that we've added and added and added. And, some of the materials, it's costing us $4,000 a ton to recycle. And when you're starting to look at the whole picture, you're going to wind up getting my recommendations. And then we're going to, there's going to be discussion that's going to have about some of the different things that are either going to be added or not. And I just wanted to let you know that's coming down the line.
Okay.
I wasn't supposed to be here for this last procurement, just saying. Jason laughing at me. It's just, yeah.
Well,
You are.
I'm glad I am too, but gosh, oh man.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Martha.
All right, so capital, you just started something else. Are you saying that like after the RFP is set, you've got the next 5 years on operations on its way, then you'd be looking at capital? So
Yeah, you've approved it. Well, you haven't approved it yet, but you have roughly $1 million request for capital improvements. And we're also negotiating that right now. My life hasn't been very easy, right, Jason? Unfortunately, it hasn't been very easy, but we'll get there. I look forward to our follow-ups on all of these things.
All right, Mike Lane.
Hi, Barb.
Hey,
I have to take exception to one thing you said. You said
okay, you always do. That's okay.
the best decision we ever made was to make sure the county controlled recycling, which was the second best decision we ever made. The best decision we made was not to build a landfill.
Right, that too. You gotta thank Barb Mink and and Stu Stein for helping me with that job.
That predates me, actually, and I'm glad that happened. But I wanted to ask you, Henry raised this issue the other day, and Tioga County is going to stop apparently curbside pickup of recycling. Are they expecting this to go to the landfill?
No, my mother-in-law happens to live in Owego, and we had whoops, I just lost you guys. We enjoyed a 90th birthday lunch with her, and what's happening is Taylor's gonna be doing it, and the price is gonna double. And she couldn't remember on her bill, but she seemed to think that she was paying about $15 a month, and it's going up to $30. Cortland County also is looking at either eliminating recycling or doing something else. We're going to get a survey what's going on. The prices are so high right now. And if you don't own your own facility, which are so few counties in the state, you have absolutely no power because these haulers are just telling you what you're going to need to pay. And the truth is the recycling markets are so low, and the costs of doing single stream or even dual stream in New York City are so high that you start to scratch your head and say, if you're not a progressive community like we are, what are we doing this for? It's costing far more than the cost of disposal. And so I know that I'm seeing hundreds of programs going away around the country, and I'm grateful to work in a county where we don't have to have that conversation. Are we going to continue recycling or not? The conversation is more related to what are we willing to pay for things and what is it that we can do to simplify it?
Well, I agree with you 100%. And I look at the stores, you go through the paper products and they're empty, all the shelves are empty. A lot of those paper products are made from recycled paper. And I don't understand it. Somebody's making some money and not paying us for the prices we ought to be getting for recycling.
I don't know. I mean, having been on the National Recycling Board and being really involved, I'm on the stakeholders group for New York State. I think it's much more than that. I'm happy to say that is not the main factor. I think that really what it boils down to is the people that got into recycling were garbage haulers, okay? They were fine with it as long as the revenues were so high. I mean, we're looking at a 65 to 70% reduction in revenues from 5 years ago. But it's our job now, as county leaders, and I serve you, to find a way to do this in a win-win situation for everybody.
Well, thanks for your efforts.
Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Barb. Appreciate that.
Talk to you later. I'll get that corrected immediately. I'll go talk to Jeremy right now. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Let's have Rich. Deb, do you have a hand up? Or you're waving?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I thought another really good decision we made was hiring Barb.
Oh, stop. Well, let me tell you what's really clear to me is that we've had a really good situation here because we decided to take these non-disposal costs off of the disposal fee. And we came up with creative ways as a legislature and, the right kind of financials, the right kind of legal framework. And of course, there's operations, but I think the programs to reduce waste, the grassroots programs for the next few years are really our future. And that's what we're going to focus on. And that's cheap. Thank you for the compliment. And thank you all for your interest in the subject matter.
Thank you, Barb. Really appreciate it. And
you too. We'll get that corrected. Oh, my Lord. Okay, bye.
All right. And we're assigning Rich John to be the mathematics consultant. All right, and Henry is his backup. Next topic is the airport, and that in your book is page 1. So welcome to Mike Hall, and I believe you got Roxanne in there. You guys are so far away from the camera. Is that Roxanne there?
It is me.
Hi, Roxanne. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. We're going to try to share our slides here.
All right, and Mike, you're really, really faint and quiet. If you could get closer to wherever the microphone is, that'd be great.
Okay, we'll speak up. How's that?
That works. That works.
Okay, do you have the slides now?
That looks good. Yep.
Okay. Okay, here are the major influences on our budget this year. The largest being market uncertainty. I think that those of you who follow the news are aware that the air travel industry is in a certain amount of turmoil. It is certainly the safest public transportation, but for a variety of reasons, including travel restrictions in and out of New York and the availability of testing and vaccine options to try to remove some of that uncertainty, it remains very volatile. Ithaca right now is 30% year over year. In January, we were 110%. In February, we were 120%. And now we are tracking the national average, which we will do to some degree because we're not going to have a 50 or 60% year over year when the rest of the country is at 30%. That said, the rest of New York, LaGuardia, for example, is 15% year over year. And that all relates to the restrictions that have been placed on travel in and out of New York in an attempt to control the rate of infection. Last April, a 6-month package was put into place that supported the airlines and airports. And of course, you're aware over the last 6 weeks in particular, there's been a lot of discussion about a subsequent CARES Act, if you will. On the 30th of September, the original support for airlines ran out. That support required that airlines serve the communities they served before the 1st of April in exchange for federal support. They were also given the opportunity to appeal to the federal government if they thought that was not in their best economic interest. United Airlines appealed, was turned to drop or pause service in Ithaca. They were turned down. They appealed again, and they were allowed to pause service. So our service today is from Delta and American. However, all 3 of the airlines continue to pay station fees, even though United is not currently operating in and out of Ithaca. Airports also received a significant amount of money for debt service and operating costs. In our case, it was nearly $1.8 million. Our hope is to use as much of that as possible to reduce debt service. But as we go back to bullet number 1 about market uncertainty, we'll have to wait and see. So in terms of going into 2021, very, very difficult to predict where we're going to be. You just think back to what you thought on the 1st of April. Over the summer, this infection would probably fade and we'd start getting back to normal. Well, now we're saying, well, we got flu season coming up. It's going to be harder and harder to sort out the symptoms and the cause without testing. And so everybody's kind of looking to the spring for a greater amount of recovery, and really probably a year from now or more before we get back to anything like the previous normal. So in 2021, there are 2 additional services offered at the airport. One is direct international entry. The customs facility is active as we speak. We've not had any international arrivals yet. Obviously, international arrivals are subject to all the domestic travel constraints and then some. All that is vetted by the federal government, meaning that nobody will be able to fly into Ithaca unless they meet, the criteria for air travel between whatever country they're leaving from in the United States. And the second is consolidated fuel services. We will be commissioning the fuel farm next month. And in concert with that, we'll begin servicing New York State DOT vehicles and other municipal vehicles in addition to the airport vehicles, providing some additional revenue to the airport. We just aren't sure what that's going to be right now.
Mike, I'm sorry, did you say that will actually start next month?
The fuel facility will be commissioned in November.
Great.
Okay. This is the recommended budget. It includes all that uncertainty that we talked about. This budget is going to change, I think, significantly as we progress throughout the year. And our commitment to you is that as we become aware of changes in the budget, we'll communicate them. But obviously, if you go back to bullet number 1 about the market uncertainty and the path or trajectory of the pandemic, it remains to be seen at this point how this is going to unfold. Oh, went one slide too far. Let me see if I can get us back. Okay, FTEs remain unchanged for 2021, and subject to your questions.
Thank you very much, Mike and Roxanne. Appreciate it. And you can pull the slides off so we can see folks. And I see Henry's got his hand up first.
Yes, Mike?
Yes, sir.
Have you noticed an increase in flights for August and September since Cornell is back and IC is sort of back?
So I'm trying to get the picture back here for Zoom. Just a second. The answer is that we've had regular communication with Cornell about the flow of students in and out of town, and we've shared that information with our airline partners. As a result, last week, American Airlines announced their November schedule. Now, normally, these schedules are announced 6 months ahead of time, but that's the nature of the industry right now, is they're holding their cards till the last minute. So what happened is that American is doubling the flights starting on the 3rd of November, or election day, about that day. And there'll be 2 flights a day through Charlotte for the month of November. Then the week of Thanksgiving, based on Cornell's input about when their fall semester would end, American's flying 3 flights a day to Charlotte. We asked them about December, and they haven't committed to December yet. So our big concern on the 30th of September is, with no more support and the requirement to support a market, that the airlines are going to free market. That could hurt markets the size of Ithaca, which is a smaller market. Obviously, they're going to fly from Los Angeles to New York, but not necessarily to places like Ithaca. So far, so good. The American Airlines load factor to and from Charlotte for 1 flight a day is running at 60%, which is economically viable. It's not profitable, but they're not losing money. We'll see what happens when it becomes 2 flights a day. Delta Airlines is restricting some of their seats, which American is not. And on that same basis, with a restricted number of seats, Delta is running about the same load factor. So the 2 carriers serving Ithaca right now, we have an economic reason for that service to continue, whereas they have dropped other communities completely. So keep your fingers crossed.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Martha?
Oh, Mike, hi. Go ahead, Mike Lane.
Two questions, Mike, if I could, please. One, are you hearing anything more about the grant funding from DMV for the CDL testing site?
CDL testing site's been kind of in the back burner given given everything going on around here. I did initiate a conversation about it the other day. I don't have any answers back, but it remains, you know, let's put it this way, it's working its way up toward the top of the list. I've not heard anything current about that, but I'll get you an answer by F&I on Thursday.
Well, that would be nice. Thank you. The other question I have is, in your budget, are we still, is the airport still closed for a certain time of period at night?
The airport is closed, is open 24 hours a day, but there's no operational manning between midnight and 4 a.m. There is just a rental security person in the terminal. So the airfield itself is unattended, but it's open.
I didn't hear that last. I apologize.
The airport itself is unattended, but it is open 24 hours a day. It's unattended between midnight and 4 a.m.
Okay. Thank you.
Mike, what does that mean? Means the terminal is open, but there's no staff, or means the tarmac, the runway? What do you mean?
What that means is that there's no crash fire rescue capability between midnight and 4, and there's nobody to monitor any of the operations that may take place between midnight and 4. It also means that some operators will not come in here between midnight and 4 because they require crash fire rescue as part of their insurance package or whatever, but that's not exclusive.
Okay, thanks.
But is the building open?
No, the runway is open.
Oh, okay.
The terminal is closed, and there's a what you call a rental security operation. There's a security person in the terminal.
Thank you.
Inside the terminal.
Do we have sheriff's deputies there at all? We used to.
I'm sorry, Martha, I couldn't understand you.
We used to have sheriff's deputies doing a shift or two. Is that still, is the sheriff's office still doing that at all?
I still hear you.
Yeah, so Martha, they're here during flight operations. They're actually here 16 hours a day roughly. So we pay the sheriffs for coverage because it's mandated that they have to be here, and it's a partially funded mandate by the TSA. So we get a portion of that back from them.
Good.
Okay. Thank you, Roxanne. Anybody else? Mike, I'm looking at your budget, page 3 and our big thing, and it shows federal aid of $239,734. Was that the CARES Act money?
I believe that's what was plugged in there. Yeah, we were just trying to balance things out. And again, that could change on how we adjust that as well, depending on where we end up the rest of this year, what we anticipate for next year, and what changes we end up having to make for our non-airline revenue, for our airline revenue. So that could be adjusted as well.
So the CARES money was just shy of 1.8 million, and we were allowed to divide that locally between current operations and debt service. One of the challenges is the cost per enplanement at Ithaca. It's a challenge for all smaller airports because you've got fixed costs like runways and what have you, and the lower the cost of enplanement, the more eager the airlines are to serve the community. So we've been working to get ours down. The easiest way to get it down is to have less debt service. So we would prefer that we be able to use that CARES money and any subsequent money that is provided by the federal government to the airport for relief for debt service. But if that's not the case, then we have to use it for operations. Now, in terms of support for the airport, there are a lot of priorities in this community and elsewhere for where that federal aid may go. But we're along for the ride. Nobody's really interested in what the airport thinks. Whatever Congress decides, they'll decide. I would say this, however, support for the airlines and airports is frequently reported as being one of the major considerations in any future federal support. So we're not competing with other interests. Like I said, we're along for the national ride. The concern is, by the way, without future federal support, the airlines are talking about 70,000 layoffs, and those people could not be brought back quickly. So you're going to take down a whole transportation infrastructure, and it's going to take a long time to rebuild it. And that, of course, will affect the economic recovery.
Right. So the fuel farm is about ready to open for service. That's great. How did that come in as far as budget?
Well, we're going to be able to pump fuel on both sides of the fence, if you will, from that fuel farm. And we have one customer for sure, which is New York State Department of Transportation. But any other municipal vehicle can use their WEX card to draw fuel from that site. So we expect that we may pick up other municipalities because we have a more favorable rate on the fuel than they may be able to get for themselves. Also, there's the matter of location. You know, a lot of the refueling takes place at commercial gas stations right now at greater expense to municipal budgets. So it's a win-win situation if you want to look at it that way. We'll be able to derive some much needed revenue to the enterprise unit, and whoever's purchasing will be able to purchase fuel cheaper than they will other places. That's the way that works.
I'm sorry, I meant the construction budget. Did it come in at about what we were planning for?
The project cost.
Yeah, the project is on track right now to be what it was estimated and bid for. Yeah.
Okay, great.
There have been very few surprises on this project. The only issue we've got going right now is rehabbing one of the tanks that's been in service for quite a long time. Everything else seems to be working out quite well.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions? Dan or Mike? I don't see your hands up. All right, thanks very much, Mike and Roxanne. Great to see you both.
Bye.
Thank you for the
Have a
opportunity.
good evening. Yep.
Bye.
All right, next we have the very large Department of Weights and Measures. Welcome, Aaron. And we've got, you're in page 206 in section 4. Aaron Becker, good to see you. Aaron, I'm sure you're working on your slides. You're on mute. Okay. Now we can hear you. Yeah.
All right. I'm not trying to figure out how to get my presentation up for you.
All right. I think you and a lot of department heads have a challenge with this. So that we'll maybe put this in the training budget for next year. Jason can tell everybody how to do this, right, Jason?
I have no idea where it's at. I got a screen up here and I'm not seeing anything here.
Hey, Aaron, do you see the share screen button at the bottom?
Yeah, I already hit that and there was a white screen that came up, said select a window or an application that you want to share.
Do you see the PowerPoint presentation somewhere?
I see expanded budget committee, calendar, iPad, the screen that's already on, the Zoom. No, I don't see it.
Do you have it open on your screen, on your desktop?
No, I do not.
Now you got to open it on your desktop first. So get out of that shared screen section, open it on your desktop, open it up, and then you can go back down there. And then you'll share that.
All right. One by one. I'm going to minimize you guys. I won't lose you, hopefully.
Okay.
All right. We're minimal. We're looking at the wall behind you. You got a lot of notes on the wall.
Yeah. Oh, where is it?
Were you able to open the PowerPoint, Aaron?
I'm still looking for it.
Aaron, if you'd like, I can jump in. I've got it ready to go here.
That
Okay.
would be great. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kev. Says the voice behind the curtain.
Right. No, that's not the PowerPoint. There we go. Thank you, Kevin. We're close.
Almost there. Do I still need to put it on share screen, Kevin?
Kevin, you're on mute. Do you have some helpful tips?
I lost you.
Should we, I don't know if Human Services is here. I saw John Mazzello. I see Kathy. All right, there we go. All right, thank you, Kevin.
That's a little better. It looks like the last slide there.
That's the last
Go
one.
to previous slides, yeah. There we go. All right, well, my presentation is pretty basic. Most of the savings from 2021 or 2020's budget to 2021 is the elimination of a full-time FTE. The savings in the salary and fringes was obviously a very big part of that. The amount of revenue for inspection fees remained roughly about the same. Part of the savings to hit the 12% threshold in the 2021 budget, the target budget, part of that around 23,000 out. If you could go on to the next slide. All right, went over the FTEs. One more slide, please. Well, you can see the 27,000 is an OTR from rollover funds from the 2019 certified rollover, and 23,000 of before that is actually being applied at the 12% savings threshold for the 21 budget, and that is for a vehicle replacement. The current vehicle is a 2008 Chevy. It's starting to wear its age, and that's roughly about all I've got. It's not a lot to discuss, I don't think, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate that. All right, after all that trouble, Kevin, you want to close that one out? Thank you. I see Annie Corman.
Thanks, Martha. Aaron, thanks for your presentation. So at the employee lunch program or the recognition program that we had, Aaron was helping, as many of us were, helping hand out lunches, and he had his van there and he showed it to me. And not only is it showing a lot of wear, but there's a safety issue where he needs to have a new type of vehicle that separates the back storage from the front, because of part of the work that he does is goes around and tests that and correct me here, or Aaron, if I'm saying this wrong, is testing gasoline pumps to make sure that they're actually correct as they're measuring your gallon of gasoline. And so that equipment has gas fumes. And so I'm surprised that he's been able to put up with this and other people have been able to put up with this, but it's a safety issue because there's gas fumes that there's no way to isolate that from the passengers that are in the vehicle.
Yeah, well, when I get done testing fuel stations with approvers, I do drain them, put all the product back into the appropriate tanks that the product is drawn from, but I also drain them for several minutes to get as much of the fuel residue out as I can. But unfortunately, it's still quite pungent when I go to put the approvers back in the van. And now I don't want to leave them out an extended period of time while not paying attention to them, because each one of them are right around $800 a piece. So I don't want to leave them around for the public to be knocking into, because any dents would basically render them useless because they're no longer certified accurate.
Right, and as people probably know, one side effect of breathing in those gasoline fumes is it makes it really hard to do presentations on Zoom. So there you go.
I'm sure that's true. Henry Granison.
Yes, thanks, Aaron. I assume that, Jason, that there's a schedule now for replacing the van?
Yes, there is. The van will be replaced with what got set out to bid, fully set up with everything. The total tune was around $50,600 for all of it. A little over 23,000 of that was a remaining gap from where my total department expense was. That allowed me to put 23,000 or so up to that 12% savings target budget, and the remainder of that, the 27 or so thousand, is what the rollover OTR from certified 2019 funds is.
Thanks.
Did everybody hear that? Okay. Aaron, this is, so that's a 2008 vehicle that's being replaced. About how many miles are on it?
It's about 58 or 59.
Okay.
So it's fairly low mileage, but it doesn't get driven all over creation like all of our vehicles do. This is just a strictly county work, and occasionally I have to take trips to central group meetings around the state, as well as taking equipment to Albany at the metrology lab to get recertified.
Okay. Are you able to sell the van back to, do we get something out of reselling it?
Well, because it's an all-wheel drive van, I think that there won't be any problems at all selling it. In fact, I think it'll probably bring a pretty good dollar. There is another vehicle that was bought when Steve Wright was working as an inspector, so that he would have a vehicle and Don Ellis would have a vehicle. Well, that other Ford vehicle, I believe that can get auctioned off as well. There's no need to have it at this point.
Sounds good. All right. Any other questions for Aaron?
Martha?
Yeah, Mike Lane. Sorry, Mike.
Hi, Aaron. We're sorry we don't have Julie Kiefer, a former legislator, here. She was always a real advocate for your department. I tried to do that also because we know how much work has to be done. And it's really our only consumer protection group in the county. And we know that there are things that could be done which you probably don't have time to do that some larger weights and measures departments around the state might be doing. Julie and I asked for a long time for additional people in this department, and we got it a couple of years ago in order to do the planning for retirement. But I do think that this is an area that needs to have more people on the ground. And I don't know whether, Aaron, you agree with me that or not, but I suspect you will. So I realize it's not the year probably to bring it back, but I hope that we can be thinking about the fact that we need probably at least 1.5, 2 people in weights and measures. You're welcome to comment or not comment.
Well, I can see where you're going with that, and I can see where the consuming public would benefit by having another position to fill.
Sorry, I could hardly hear
you. We have, I think that there is a legitimate need for another person to work, reason being a lot of package testing, making sure that what people get in the stores is actually weighed or measured volumetrically or linearly. Most of the time that stuff is done by auditing, so that way you can test products on the shelf without being destructive and minimizing profit for the store that has this good to be sold. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of products in a store that could be tested or audited in any given day, and that requires a lot of time to do so. And another thing that Tompkins County does not do is fuel quality testing, ensuring that what you're actually getting in your fuel is the octane that is being displayed for sale. And that is another aspect of consumer protection. So basically what I do is I take care of the complaints as far as any kind of packaged commodities and grocery stores and things of that nature. But mostly my work is around the devices that are used for commercial purposes. And that's what chews up most of my time out in the field.
I appreciate your comments.
Certainly.
Leslie McBean Claiborne. Then Anna.
Thank you, Aaron. For selfish reasons, I've joined Julie over the years in advocating for additional staffing for weights and measures, because I always found the job fascinating and think that in my next life, that's what I would want to do. So it's all selfish reasons why I think about it. Is that a Walmart greeter or work for weights and measures, and I prefer to work for you. So I have.
I hear we're hiring soon.
I'm working my way up to it. I really am. So I was trying to follow in the budget book and understand, and maybe Jason, you can help me as well. What got cut before the OTR for the vehicle? And I couldn't follow that.
That was actually a position, a full 1.0 FTE. So a very large majority of the savings between salary and fringes from 2020 to 2021 was that savings, and the remainder was that 23,000 to hit the 12% savings target budget.
So that's what I'm asking. Where's the 23,000? Was that the vehicle line?
Yes.
So it got cut, but then I couldn't follow it, but then replaced and added rollover money to bring it up to 50 something to buy a new vehicle.
Correct.
Thank you. That's what I was trying to understand. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Jason, did you want to add something?
Oh, I think you covered it. Good.
Anna Kellis?
Yeah, thank you, Aaron, for the presentation. One thing that I've always been curious about, and I know we've sort of danced around it before, but it's very easy to look at this department and see what's done and feel, you're doing a great job, and we move on. It's very hard to see the counterfactual, the negative, what is not done, what is left in the field not done. So I'm just curious if you could paint us a picture. If you had your ideal department, how many staff would it be, and what programs would you cover? What services would you cover that you are not able to cover? Just to give us a sense of where we are on that scale.
I think if I were to hire up a full-time FTE, one person, I think that would pretty much cover everything. A majority of what doesn't get done is package checking, as well as fuel quality testing. The fuel quality testing does cost money, but a portion of that is reimbursable. But I'd have to look into that. I haven't had much time to pay attention to that, but I know a small portion of it. But I could certainly look into that and give you a better answer later if you'd like.
Yeah, and one last question with respect to that. If In your field, in general, what percentage would you say, or is there a known percentage of how many products, if you were doing package testing, from food industries are outside of the parameter of what they say?
It's actually very small, but a lot of it is actually random in-store packing. Say, for instance, meats and things of that nature. You look at a steak that's got the styrofoam tray in it with a soaker mat in it, wrapped in cellophane, and it looks really bloody. It's dripping, right, of blood. Well, after a while, so much that blood's going to drip out, it's going to fall below that threshold. And it's called an MAV, or maximum allowable variation.
And is there a fee associated with being out of compliance?
For stuff like that,
A fine.
It can be if it's a consistent problem, but once I find it on an audit basis, I let the people know that it needs to be corrected. They take it back and they correct it right there on the spot, and then it's accurate again.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thanks, Aaron. Any other questions from anybody? All right, very interesting. We really appreciate your time, Aaron, and we will see you another time soon. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you all.
All right. It looks like I'm going to ask folks, we are actually a little early on the schedule for Human Services Coalition and agencies. Is this a time when folks might want to take a 5 to 7 minute break? I see a thumb up for a break. Anybody? Couple more thumbs up. All right, I think. Let us take a few minutes, everybody back in their seats at 6:20, if that's okay with John Mazzello and Kathy Schlaughter. So, all right, 6:20, we'll see you back. Thanks. Hello, Kathy. Hi, John.
Hi,
Martha.
Never saw one look like that before.
Got it at
Are we ready to
Farm Stand and Drive.
start back up?
Did you? Oh, right there. at
Yeah.
523.
Yeah, I think we are. I
I
see a
say.
few people back. John and Kathy are there.
Yeah, well, they closed down, and then somebody came in. Yep, and temporary. Too bad, I like
All right. Human Services Coalition gets the award for most efficient presentation of their slides. We are starting with the agencies, and that's in section 5, page 10. And you all got a lot of information emailed this afternoon as well, so some backup information. Welcome, Kathy and John. How are you?
Thank you.
Thanks.
So John and I will be giving the presentation tonight. Jill is our finance person is here also in case there are finance questions that anybody has. We are going to present the coalition first, followed by the agencies, if that is all right with everybody.
Sure, that's on page 15 in section 5.
Okay, so this is our recommended budget for this year. As you can see, it is a 12% cut in our funding. Can you go back? Thanks, John. John's doing the PowerPoint.
Sorry, I was overzealous.
Which is why it's on so, so well. We did put an extra line in here just because I just wanted to. And just to show that the total cut, we also took a 12.5% cut in 2020. And so for the next, say, 18 months, our cut in the county will be $119,000 in funding, which is, a substantial cut for us. It's something that we can cover between our fund balance, and we did get PPP funding this year, but we will have to have a deficit budget in 2021, so where we can cover it for a year. This is deficit budgets. You just can't sustain those going forward. And problem is, I said, I think I've been around just so long that, I took this job right before the recession, the last recession. So this kind of one step forward, one step back, trying to get to where you were, back up your funding, where you were 4, 5, 6 years ago, just seems to be kind of this constant cycle that we're on. But anyway, so I thought I'd share that with people. All right, thanks, John. So I just we wanted to go over a few of the current factors that we're dealing with, and these have all been things that we are been doing since March. One of the first things on our staff did, Liddy Barger, she got together a coordinated street outreach team, so to make sure that people who are living in encampments and homeless people had porta-johns, hand sanitation stations, masks, make sure they got food, and a little later on, but now they're also having medical care in the encampments. So that group continues to meet on a regular basis, and will continue to do so throughout the winter. Our navigators and health advocates have been working with businesses and with individuals to make sure that anybody who transitioned, or got laid off or furloughed would not be losing their health insurance. Since March, they've dealt with about 800 cases of people, either health insurance or helping people use their insurance or with billing issues. So they've had a lot to do since March. This group has had to kind of monitor all the regulatory changes that were put in place because of the pandemic, things like insurance eligibility, special enrollment periods, what insurance coverage would be for telehealth, medicine, and other things that keep coming down on a pretty regular basis. I've been meeting with a funders group of local and regional funders twice a week since March so that we could try to coordinate assistance to nonprofits with the aim of making it easier for nonprofits by just being able to put in like one request for funding, and a couple of the agencies, United Way and Community Foundation, have been raising money to meet agency needs. Through some of this funding, we were able to get funding from the funders to provide, to hire and provide consultants. And they're working with 20 separate nonprofits right now to help them figure out how to, frankly, survive for the next 18 months. So, and then we continue to do our one-on-one consulting with agencies. The other thing, and I'm going to let John talk about this, he's got a little slide for you. As you all know, that right early on, 211 became the main non-health related number for people to call. So I thought you might be a little interested in what they've been doing for the past, what are we on now, 7-8 months? John?
Sure, thank you, Kathy. So Kathy asked me just to share with you a little bit about how 211's been going since the beginning of the year, but mostly since COVID really changed everything for us in March. And you can see here, the main takeaway really is to know that 211 is up pretty dramatically this year. As you know, 211 is the county's information and referral helpline. So we help people who are seeking help in many ways to figure out what kind of assistance is available for them and help them get connected to that. Year to date, we're up about 40% over our average numbers. And really since around March 16th, when we were activated on behalf of Tompkins County Health Department, we're up about 50% over year last year. So we're really taking a lot of contacts from individuals in Tompkins County. We do also serve Cortland County, but about 85% of our calls come from within Tompkins. So we're mostly heavily into Tompkins. We passed our total number for the last 3 years in August, and we're already about 2,500 or 3,000 calls over that to this point in the year. So we anticipate we'll be up about 40% by the end of the year at least. We've been working closely with the health department. As I mentioned earlier, we've taken a bunch of the non-emergency and non-clinical COVID related calls off their plates. We've been working closely with Samantha Hilson and Dominic Recchio to be fully informed about all the changes and information that the county's got around the coronavirus. We also have been working with the county on supporting transportation for individuals who are symptomatic or have a high likelihood of potentially contracting COVID-19 who need transportation to the testing site up by the mall. We've been working closely with that. And then a number of other partnerships in the community have arisen with the Food Task Force, with the United Way, with the Child Development Council, with the Ithaca City School District. Just anyone who really needs a home base to receive a lot of calls for people who are in need of help. We've been filling that role over the past 6 months. So that's a basic update on 211 and what we've been doing. And this essentially concludes the HSC portion of the presentation. I'm not sure if you'd like to take questions or give any questions now for HSC, or would you like us to continue on with the community agencies also?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to focus for a moment on HSC itself. Are there any questions from folks?
Martha?
Mike Lane. Yeah, go ahead.
Like that chart about 211, that's it's pretty amazing to have that service out there.
Thank you.
Just looking at it though, I kind of wondered even before this year, Why are the number of calls up so much January, February, March compared to the other months?
Great question. So one of the partnerships we have is with Alternatives, who does the VITA income tax prep program. And that is, that was interesting this year because typically that's a program that, you know, as you see from their request as well for funding, brings several $1 million in refunds and tax credits back into the community. And that's a program that we see there's, several thousand clients use. This year was a little strange because everyone was getting ready to do their taxes. Then the tax deadline got extended. Alternatives had to shut down their in-person tax prep process. Then they started up again and taxes were due again in July. So there was kind of a double wave of tax contacts over the years and over the year. And then there was a lot of confusion because if you recall, you also needed to have filed your taxes for previous years to be eligible for that $1,200 stimulus payment. And many of the people who are clients of the VITA program have not filed in past years, even though they should have. And so we took a lot of calls supporting people who were looking to do late filing so that they would be able to be eligible for that payment.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
I was wondering that too. That's a great question, Mike. Shauna Black.
All right, thank you. Can you tell me if you've had enough staff to meet the need for the 211 calls?
Yeah, it's a great question. So crisis calls are interesting. Crisis, it tends to be a narrower band of needs. So actually I would say it's funny, our call volume has stabilized to some extent right now, but our staff are busier because earlier on in the pandemic, the calls were about mask mandates and where do I go and how do I get tested and what's up? It was the same question over and over, and a lot of those other needs were pushed aside. Now that we're farther into it, I think that we definitely know, and I didn't show this slide because it really gets in the weeds, but we know all about the needs that people are asking about. And it's really widened. The types of needs that people have before are now starting to come back again, as well as all those COVID related needs. So it is wider here and a little bit more, it's a little bit more diverse for our call specialists to be able to take them. So it has been helpful that the call numbers have stabilized to keep us, but we're doing okay right now. We do have some volunteers we can call on, and we have some staff that are cross-trained if necessary. And we also have the ability now with our phone system to take calls remotely. So we're able to pull on other people. We've had offers from United Way and others to bring together other volunteers if we do need them.
Great, thank you.
Henry.
Yes, John. I was wondering whether you have separated out the 211 calls for COVID related versus non-COVID related.
Yeah, definitely. So we've actually been supporting a lot of partnerships in sharing information. I did a presentation to the funders group a couple months ago, just try to keep them on top of what people are asking about. I just did one a few weeks ago for the Ithaca Urban Renewal Agency. We do track that, and it's a little difficult because someone who might be calling about a need for food, but the need for food is really because they lost their job. Our call specialists are estimating that about 2/3 of calls are in some way related to COVID, even if it's not the main reason. It's a contributing factor, if not the main factor. So about 2/3 are in some way related at this point.
And did I also hear that you accept calls from Cortland County?
We do. We cover Cortland County as well. Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why that you cover Cortland County?
Yeah. So all of the state is divided up into a number of different contact centers for 211. And in the Finger Lakes region, we're a little different in that we don't have just one home base, but we've actually got, and Cortland, not necessarily even a Finger Lakes County, but it's in the Finger Lakes 211 region. And so we partner with the contact center in Bath, covers some of the counties to the west of us, and then up in Rochester, they take our overnight and weekend calls, which are roughly 5% of the calls typically. So yeah, we work with Seven Valleys Health Coalition, which is the rural health network in Cortland, to be the providers of the 211 service. So they do a lot of the marketing and the community engagement for 211 out there. And then we are the contact center that supports them.
Thank you.
Henry, we do get paid
from
Cortland.
Okay.
Not that you're interested in that, you know, that's
Yeah,
not.
yeah, not that I'm interested in that, no.
Yeah.
But that's good to know.
All right, throw that in.
Thank you.
Anna.
So I just wanted to know, thank you so much for this, John, and all of your work, Kathy, as well. The pandemic is expected to continue for quite a while because of the distribution or the need of time for distribution of any vaccine once it is actually determined to be effective and, more importantly, very safe, which will take a while. So I'm assuming you expect that these numbers will stay elevated for at least a year for this next full budget cycle?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's been surprisingly consistent that 40% at this point we've stabilized. So we have not seen a falling back to last year's numbers. I think last month was our lowest above last year, and it was 25% over. But yeah, I think so. We also have a number of potential partnerships that we've been working on with others that are there's a lot of interest in trying to continue to meet the need in the nonprofit community, in the human services community, trying to get at where is need around food, around other things, around housing. And so 211 has the opportunity to because we've got that infrastructure already, we have the opportunity to support that. Obviously, additional partnerships, we are certainly aware that it's important that we are paid for them. So there are ways that we can structure that so that it works for other partners, but that we also can cover the staff time or the volunteer time. So for example, yeah, if we're still elevated and it's tax time again next year, then we're going to need to call on some of those other resources because it's on a regular year, it's wall-to-wall tax calls on the day after Martin Luther King Day. And so that will be true again, and it will also probably be wall-to-wall COVID calls.
So Kathy, do you feel, given your balance that you have, revenue balance, that you will be able to cover that period of time where it's this responding to COVID calls as well as the tax calls? I mean, I'm assuming, that you would need to get staff potentially additional, not necessarily guaranteed, but is there wiggle room?
Right now, there's not a lot of wiggle room if we have to. We have a couple staff who work part-time. If we were trying to increase their hours, we are looking at some other grants that might come through, which would, 211 would partner with them and might be able to give us a little more staff. One of the things I wanted to add to what John was saying about the increased numbers is the way 211 kind of works is, the people who once use it then continue to use it once it's in their mindset. So we expect these numbers because it's just a number of people who now know that this is a place where you can get services. So we expect the numbers to increase. Right now, I mean, it's been, not only do I worry about people, but I worry about burnout of the staff because a lot of these calls have been, intensive and intense. And so there may come a time if this is going to go on for a year that we just need more staff to just give other staff a break. And we'll just have to keep monitoring it to see how people are doing. We've got an incredible staff now and they have hung in here. And one of the things that I love, I don't want to talk too much, but we have this new United Way program where we can actually provide little monetary support for people who would call in. And then one of the things that was really hard on the people who were answering the phones was not having anything to provide to people. I mean, there were food places, but when they just needed some cash for something. So, I mean, programs like that actually help give the staff a real boost because they feel that they can really help more than they could before. They hate telling people that there's nothing out there for them. So, so yeah, we will, keep monitoring and make sure that we let you guys know if we think we're running into trouble here.
Thank you. That would be great.
Kathy, on that, you said on the United Way, how much is that? What is United Way giving you?
It's a $500 per household limit per year for a certain, kinds of things like utilities, car repairs, rent, just, trying to think where's some of the other things they give.
It could cover like a one-time health insurance payment or a child care payment that gets covered. Things that are not covered or that are either not covered by other agencies or the individual, because they're coming maybe from losing a job but still have a household income that might be too high. So it doesn't duplicate any additional existing services. It would only cover things that are not covered by existing programs.
I remember you talking about this. I'm the liaison to the HSC board. So I remember you talking about this. So the total amount from United Way, they have a contract with you for, was it 40,000 or something?
50,000 they put in a pot so far, but they're kind of committed to, if you get your United Way pledge card, that's one of their categories this year is for the COVID relief fund. So they're committed to raising additional funds.
So you said that's 50,000 from United Way? I mean, this is all sobering and impressive, and we're so glad that you're all there. I would point out that 2-on-1 is just one of the programs of the HSC. Very easy for folks to understand, I think, and I appreciate the idea that once people call you, they tend to call back. That means they're getting what they need. That means they're getting good service. They're finding a human on the other line, on the end of the line, and somebody who's really listening. And that's tremendous. We just can't thank you enough for doing that. So thank you, John, and your staff, and
Thank you.
whoever the IT magicians were that got you so where you could your staff could take calls from home. I know that was another wrinkle early on.
That is Tamara, and I will let her know because it was a lot of work.
Oh, good. Thanks to Tamara Beardsley. I'm looking at page 16 in section 5. So the Health Planning Council wasn't that funded mostly by Rural Health Network grant? And what's happening with that?
We actually did get some bizarre number, like 19.96% cut in our state rural health funding. It is right. It was funded through that funding plus a bit of county funding. It no longer covers the position. Truthfully, if you really want to know, it doesn't cover the position. Our current director is retiring, and we are hiring for that position. There just was no way. I mean, there's really no way she can do everything she needs to do in one position, but I couldn't lower it any. So we are trying to find the additional funding from elsewhere. Jill and I are thinking of cutting our time and just to fill that position.
And you said the local funders, you've been meeting twice a week with them?
Funders group, yeah. We're now, just last week, we went down to once a week. But in the beginning, since March, we've been meeting twice a week to try to meet the needs of the nonprofit. And they've been very responsive. They've been taking requests for funding just by, it was like no wrong door. Or somebody, if an agency sent an email to one of the funders, they would bring the request to the whole group of funders. So it's been really a great collaboration.
Well, our thanks to all of them as well. If you want to just name, that's the Park Foundation, the Community Foundation, United Way.
Triad, IURA's in it, tourism is involved. There's a fund from the Women's Community Building Fund, Community Health Foundation of Central and Western New York is also part of it. Legacy, big part of it. Tompkins Financial Trust. So just about all the local funders and sub-regional funders also.
Well, this is really very, very key to our community, trying to hold people up in some really terrible times. Thank you so very much. If there are no other questions for the coalition itself, we could turn to the agencies. All right, and that in your book starts on page 10, and there are many other pages as well. Go ahead.
Okay, I will try to share this again.
Good.
All right. Okay, so I think that it sounded like, Martha, you mentioned that everyone received the handouts we sent over.
Yes.
We've got the information that you have asked for in the past, the descriptions of agencies, the summary of requests and recommendations, and of course the chart of past funding. So here you can see the overview of our last year, the agency's last year's adopted numbers, as well as the county administrator's recommendations here. I'll just point out, and I think you've discussed it in other presentations this evening, the grand total is the net local for you. The revenue here is by agreement. A portion of the city sales tax contributes to the community agency's budget line. Last year, or this current year, it's approximately 60% or 40% of the total. Next year, it's looking like it's around 44%, because the sales tax is lagging. The change in sales tax will actually be reflected in future budget years. So what we're looking at for the sales tax numbers that come out to this year, which will likely be a decline, the 2020 sales tax numbers we will know next year. So that will be for next year's budget process, but actually for the 2022 funding. So we do anticipate that there's likely to be a second wave of hits, even if the county expenditures don't change, a second round of hits on the community agencies as the sales tax declines. It did mitigate the cut a little bit this year because it was up last year. Quickly, I'll just show you, but not dwell on them. These are the agencies that participate in the process, the funding process. We did not have any new agencies this year. There were no additional ones, though there were some rumblings no one actually put in. Just to give you a quick overview of the process, and it was both similar and very different this year. Our application process began in April and was all virtual. Our citizens review committee was all repeat participants. We figured that this was a year for the all-stars, for the experts, not to bring someone on new, but really take people who are really knowledgeable about the agencies and the systems here in Tompkins County. We met with each organization, each executive director, and most of the board chairs or other board officers as part of that process. It was approximately 25 hours of meetings over the course of May and June, and then deliberations, which were challenging this year. Of course, as you know, a cut is more challenging to talk about than a flush year. We include in our process, of course, a review of both the program information and details, as well as financial information, which is provided by agencies and then examined by Jill, our finance director, as well as the review process committee. And as Kathy mentioned a little bit, we've been in really close touch with the agencies, regularly reaching out to them with a set of questions that we ask everyone, very regularly, to keep apprised of what they are doing and how things are going around both their program as well as their budget challenges for this year. And just to let you know, agencies received that 25% cut to the county levy portion of their contracts in the third and fourth quarters of this year, which for most of the community agencies, because of the sales tax contribution, which has not declined, came out to about a 7.5% cut, but closer to a 12% cut for OAR because their sales tax portion is really minimal. So with that, I will turn it over to Kathy to discuss some of the major influences in the OTRs.
So yeah, thanks. And I just wanted to talk to you a little bit. We have done 2 phone surveys with the agencies, just a key. We try to do that every couple of months, check on to see how they are. I wish I could say they're all in one particular place, but they're really in all different, they're all over the map. Some of them are doing okay. Some of them, as you have read in the paper, are not doing all right at all. Just about everybody is in some kind of hybrid mode of remote operations, with part of staff maybe coming into the office occasionally. They've all been very creative about connecting with their clients. Most applied for the PPP. That helped them keep staff on the payroll. They are all very worried about what the funding is going to happen in 2021 when there's no more PPP. They are kind of all over the map. Also with local contributions, agencies that do what we consider more essential services, food, daycare have been actually, well, not so much daycare, mostly food, have been getting a lot of contributions. And some of the ones that are less what people might now look at as essential services, their contributions are down. A lot of them do their big push in the fourth quarter of the year, and they're all very nervous about what's going to happen to that. Oh, let's see what else. A lot of them have heard that they're having, it's a big problem with people, I believe the state, the word they're using is withholding money. A number of them have not gotten their 2020 funding from the state. If they did get it, the 20% was withheld. A lot of them have not heard what's going to happen to their 2021 funding, and they're all pretty nervous and concerned about it. Now, most people, there haven't been a lot of people who have had permanent layoffs. A couple agencies have. A number of people furloughed people, hope to bring them back. Some people, I was actually amazed at the number of people who are actually trying to hire now. Some of them are not having great luck. And then other ones are kind of bridging the gap, funding gap, by not filling positions. So depending on what kind of services they provide, I would say has a lot to do with the position they're in now. I think that's it for the major influence. Does anybody have specific questions? I could answer those afterwards. So here are the over target requests that we put in for the agencies that were recommended in the budget. I won't go over them one by one. This group was recommended. And do you want to go to the over target that were not? And there were two over targets that Jason did not recommend in the budget. One was Law New York's early intervention homelessness prevention program. This would have been the third year, I always love this term, the third year of a 3-year one-time grant. And the second one was for almost $25,000, which they would like to get back to OAR in target funding, because frankly, the review committee just felt that that was an oversized cut for OAR, which is a small agency, which is a lot going on there. And they felt that where they would still take a cut, about $8,000 cut, which puts them much more in line with the cuts the other agencies were taking. So that I think is basically, I just wanted to let you know, both Greg Thomas from Law New York and Deb Dietrich from OAR are here. If anyone has any specific questions about their programs, I think that's probably it for our presentation. If people have questions about the agencies.
Okay, thanks very much, Sean, Kathy and John. We got Deborah and then Shauna.
Thanks, Martha. Thank you, Kathy and John, for all your work. I do have questions about a couple of the specific OTRs. The College Initiative Upstate program, it wasn't clear to me from the discussion in the budget book how many students that program served in the spring and fall semesters of this year. You happen to know?
Spring and fall of this year.
Right.
Like
I just wondered if
I actually, we don't have those numbers. We could probably find them. I don't know if Deb Where's
Yes, I
All right.
have them.
You have them.
I've got them. This spring, it was 43 students at TC3 for spring of 2020. And I just got the numbers for the fall. There are 34 enrolled at TC3 this fall, and 8 are newly college enrolled. And we also have an additional 8 in the fall college prep class that we offer. It's only been offered twice this year as opposed to the usual 3 times. It was, we had a switch midstream in spring to remote, a remote platform, and we completed the spring and we've just started a fall college prep. But
Okay, good. So we made good use of the money from last year.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then my other question has to do with the Endeavor House OTRs. There's an OTR for Endeavor House case management. I was wondering how many people you had in Endeavor House this year.
I haven't recently tallied it, and we've had some turnover this last 2 months. But up until through August, it served 9 formerly incarcerated males, and we had one guy that we've just transferred into. He moved into renovation house, a rehabilitation program in Spencer. So we're interviewing tomorrow for 2 different people to fill that slot. And we have another client that we've been working with a lot, 2 actually, working with them a lot to try to find them more permanent housing. One of whom's been in Endeavor House a year and a half. And we've basically told him he has to be out by the end of October, but we've been doing intense searching with him. So I'd say, we're looking at probably 12 individuals average a year. We've been running now 2.5 years, and we're finally getting it down, knowing what we're doing better, and having the case manager there has been phenomenally helpful. In addition to Endeavor House, Richard really spearheaded our outreach into the homeless encampments, where we could keep in touch with a lot of our most vulnerable clients. And Richard is the Endeavor House case manager. So he just kind of just kept growing what he was doing as the need emerged. And so we need about 5 more Endeavor houses. We have quite a waiting list. I know that on the coordinated assessment tool, I think we have 88 or 90 formerly incarcerated on that list, waiting list. The Endeavor House, a particular one, we have over 40.
Jeez.
So there's the demand far exceeds the supply.
That's always the case with good things. Okay, and then one other question. This OAR parolee housing case manager, what does that program entail and how many people does that serve?
Okay, we've had that position last year, you all funded as an over target request. We worked with 54 parolees through April of this year. Now that person's left that position, and so my front office staff has been tracking. We haven't been doing as intensive case management with those parolees over the last couple months, but we've got them tracked in our Apricot data system. Many of them come back through the door for Endeavor House. And of course, OAR has been open, the office, some staggered staffing, but since mid-May, we opened our office with social distancing and masks and trying to restrict it to 1 client at a time. And that isn't very successful. So we had the last 2 weeks, we had over 300 walk-ins at OAR for a variety of immediate needs. So what we're anticipating, this parolee case manager, if it's granted again, the over target request, will move back into doing more intensive parolee case management, and also will be our point person for the ESG COVID money for housing through DSS. So that that person, because those needs go so closely together, the lack of safe and affordable housing for parolees is very marked. And so we're excited that this is an opportunity to combine, our work with the parolees with this housing program.
And just for us ignoramuses, what's DSG?
I'm ESG, I'm sorry. What is it, Kathy? Emergency shelter?
Emergency shelter grant, right.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
No, that's okay. I should be sorry.
No.
Okay, okay.
The only other thing I wanted to add is the other piece that the parolee case manager will really be a point person on is the Healthy Workforce Consortium that we're working with the Alcohol and Drug Council, the Chamber of Commerce, Challenge, TC3 and Workforce to improve employment opportunities for individuals in recovery. And of course, OAR will be focusing specifically on our clients who are, have suffered from mental health and substance abuse disorder. And that person, so that is a critical position. We're advertising for it now, and they'll be really kind of the fulcrum where parolees can enter and then be directed to what they particularly need.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Deb. Sean and then Amanda.
Yeah, Deb, if I could just say it's so nice to see an organization that plays nice in the sandbox, and the collaboration that I see, it's not always the case, the collaboration that I see that OAR kind of works with everyone. And that's just really refreshing. I know that you guys work with the Reuse Center, Alcohol and Drug Council, it's just really nice. And I think that has to happen in order for us to really help people. So thank you.
Thank you.
My question is to Greg from Law New York. I noticed in this week's HHS packet, we are receiving some grant funding, and part of that is to go towards Law New York. And I wanted to see if the grant funding that we're receiving, I believe it's some COVID relief funding, and the idea was that a portion of that would go to Law New York to help with evictions. Can you tell me if this funding will replace the funding that you will no longer receive as part of an OTR?
Sure, I can try to explain how it doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's part of the same emergency shelter grant through DSS that Deb was talking about. Our portion of that is going to be $30,000 that we're putting towards essentially a half-time FTE attorney position. So it's more in the traditional defending evictions, doing the court actions, the traditional legal work where we've been the only game in town to handle that stuff. What the position that's not recommended to be refunded is the early intervention paralegal position, which is much more of a case manager type position. When people call our office, they get screened by our front desk people to determine if we could take those cases. And the attorneys who focus on housing have a nice checklist that says if somebody's received court papers and they fit in a particular category, then we're immediately going to do that intake and pass it off to one of the attorneys. If somebody calls and says, my landlord says he's going to evict me, but I don't know what to do. Historically, we didn't have anyone on board who could just take that call and say, okay, let's sit down, talk about it, and figure out what your options are, and help you walk through or jump over all the hurdles and red tape at DSS or at TCA or any place where people had asked for help and had maybe initially been turned away. So that paralegal position last year had been very effective with the person we had in there. This year we filled that position in January. COVID hit, and that we didn't get that person up to speed and completely networked, and she wasn't able to get out into the community to deal with the agencies and the clients where they were. And then she had some personal family crises and ended up leaving. So we're ready to fill that position right now. And we're talking about various options. Actually have a licensed MSW person interested in learning about the law, applying for that position on either a full-time or half-time basis. We're talking about splitting that into two half-time positions so that we have some built-in redundancy in case someone does leave. But I think that when the various eviction moratoriums end, we're going to be swamped with a lot of people who are not the traditional clientele that we see. They're not people who are familiar with the shelter system or with DSS. They're going to be people who are in desperate need of help to try to prevent the eviction. And if we can intervene in that early on and get them in a position where they can maybe develop some savings, make a partial offer of payment to a landlord, work out a payment plan, or do something else to avoid that sudden homelessness situation, we think that program would easily pay for itself in saved shelter costs over the coming winter season. When Code Blue hits, if the moratoriums end at the same time, you're going to have huge hotel bills for the county to bear, and a lot of trauma for the clients who are going to end up in that situation.
Thank you. Can you also answer, I know that the Cornell Law School is also offering some type of free legal advice and legal help for people that are facing eviction. Have you noticed that is helping your caseload, or is that something completely separate?
It's been completely separate. They're working more closely with the Ithaca Tenants Union, who had approached us early on as well. We talked to them and said that we could help train them, we could help them develop resource materials, but they were much more focused on doing the advice only kind of thing that we do to a certain extent. But we do have an application in for some additional funding through the Anti-Displacement Learning Network to work with the Cornell Law School and the Tenants Union to fund another attorney position, which would be half of which would be direct client service and half of which would be working with those volunteers who staff the information and referral network, and including the law students and some summer internships. If that all comes together, that would fund one attorney position and a half of a paralegal position to coordinate that stuff.
Great, thank you very much.
Sure.
Amanda, then Leslie, then Henry.
I think Dan actually had his hand up before, but
Okay, you guys need big flags. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. My question's for Jason. Can you talk about why you're not recommending the OAR core services OTR?
Sure. Primarily, it was the 11.5. It's actually the 12% cut that was requested from all agencies. So I did recommend the funding of the other OTRs, which are one time, but this was equivalent to the 12.5% reduction that all agencies had to budget for.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Amanda.
okay, well, that was actually one of my questions was going to be that for Jason. And I guess maybe as a follow-up, Deb Dietrich, if you're still there, I mean, what if you could speak to what this cut will mean? I mean, there's a little paragraph in the book, but what will this mean for your organization?
Well, Jason has been good enough to call me, and we've talked about some of these, the times we're in. I mean, these are really hard times that you all are facing. I've had 2 people leave, and so it doesn't mean I have to do a layoff. Let me put it that way. It does mean I have 2 people in the front office who handled the 300 walk-ins over the last 2 weeks. So that it's very hard. We schedule some time so that others of us could cover the front office so that they could take a day off here or there, but it makes it we're short-staffed. So basically, my staff's been really good about it. I've told them that we all have to kind of suck it up. But I hope that they don't leave because they're really valued staff members. And so it just means a heavier workload for everyone who remains.
But I think, okay, great. Thanks for explaining that. I did have a second question for John or Kathy. I think I saw on your slideshow the list of agencies, and one of them was Southside Community Center. and folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I wasn't sure what's going on with them. Have they closed down? Are we still funding them? If someone could help me understand that.
Yeah, they've furloughed their staff temporarily, from what we understand, until they said that they were there, but no one was coming into the center. So they didn't feel that, they were able at this time to provide services. So they did furlough the staff. They get a fairly small amount of money in our review process. And, there are, frankly, they aren't the only ones who have had to adjust their service provision during this period of time. So they are hoping to keep the staff employed, and I don't actually know what their timeline is right now. I think they're, like everybody else, is just kind of waiting to see if things get worse or better or stay the same or where they are. So no, we have not actually, talking about it, we have not adjusted anyone's funding because of this. I mean, pretty much we haven't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Leslie and then Henry.
My question is for Deb. Deb, the number of people in College of Safe New Initiative program that you mentioned, are they all returning citizens who are enrolled in TC3 of the 70 something that you mentioned, spring and fall?
No, most of them are, but there are a small number that are court involved that have been diverted to through CIU from the justice system. So we deal with court involved as well as returning citizens, but the majority are returning citizens, and not all of our CIU students are at TC3. The vast majority are, but we also have students who are currently pursuing bachelor's degrees. We have one at Stanford. One just graduated from Brooklyn College with a 4-year degree. So, but most people get into that path through TC3.
So I would be interested in just getting a breakdown, if at some point you can send that to me, and how many are court involved, how many are returning citizens, and just a sense of where they are.
Absolutely.
Attending school. And
Absolutely.
Then my other question is for some of the other work you mentioned, like folks who are coming in the door, the 300 plus people. Is there any coordination with URO and the work that URO is doing with OAR?
Yes, we've really stepped that up. I think most of you know that URO is doing a lot of committee work and focus groups around systems change. But we've been working very closely with URO through this COVID crisis, and particularly we've been coordinating, and Richard works for URO now part-time as well as OAR, Richard Rivera. And so that's been an additional kind of daily check-in with URO through Richard. And we've worked most closely with URO around the delivery of meals to the homeless encampments, to the advocacy centers, women for housing for women, largely women, Endeavor House, and certain parts of West Village. So URO and OAR have been working very closely through as these emerging emergency needs came up.
Thank you.
Does that answer the question?
Kind of. I can follow up with you later, but thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Henry's next.
Yes. Greg, I know this is impossible to tell us, but do you know how many possible evictions there would be after the moratorium runs out in beginning of the year?
We honestly have no idea. We don't have any way to count the number of people who couldn't pay their rent versus the number of people who just heard that there was a moratorium and decided they should stop paying their rent because they had other things to spend their money on. Coming up with solutions is also the other problem. I mean, there's not a lot of legal defense you can raise in a clear-cut non-payment proceeding where someone hasn't paid the rent for 6 months. Hopefully, we'll come up with some solutions that, if the court system can encourage money judgments and repayment plans instead of evictions as the actual remedy, then the landlords will eventually end up getting paid, and the tenants will keep a roof over their heads. But I'd like to be able to work with the tenants union and the Cornell students. Maybe they have the resources to do some surveys that would give us a better idea of how many people are out there. I mean, if you just read the message boards and Facebook and things, you see there are a ton of people out there, and there's a ton of misinformation out there about the various eviction moratoriums.
Okay, and this is a question for, I guess, Kathy, Jason, maybe Deb too. I noticed that the email that was sent to us had the amount of agencies and how much they were deducted. I noticed that basically most agencies were only about 6.7% or whatever, and only like St. John's and another center, I forgot which it was, had about 11% decrease. Were those numbers the numbers that Human Services Coalition recommended to the county administrator?
Yep, those are all the review committee's recommendations. Because we have the sales tax, and because all agents sit in one group and OAR sits in the group by itself, we are able to, shift the money around so that it's not like it's 9% across the board. We didn't take any cuts we didn't feel that there should be any cuts to food pantries at this time. And so we just kind of were able to shift it. OAR sits in a pool, a pool of one. So whatever the cut is, they have to take that cut in that pool. That's why you might have seen, higher cuts to some agencies and lower cuts to others. Do you want to add anything, John?
Nope, that sounds good.
Jason, did you want to answer anything?
No, I thought you were going to ask a different question. So no, I'm good.
Well, Jason, I'm wondering whether the size of OAL's budget had anything to do with the recommended cut.
No, I mean, frankly, and Deb and I spoke about this before. I mean, I asked all agencies to do a 12% reduction. It was just, this is what we're facing, and that's why I didn't recommend it. I mean, because I recommended all the other OTRs. If I recommended that, there would have been no reduction in their budget, and I didn't have a basis for treating them differently at this point. So.
Right. I probably should say that OAR gets more county funding than any other agency.
Right.
Also.
Right. There's much more significant budget, which is what which is
why it's a bigger. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, I have a couple for Deb. So on the core services OTR, are you at a spot where if this isn't approved, you're actually going to be laying somebody off?
No, we already had a reduction in force of 2 out of the group, which is over a third of a reduction in force. So I don't have to lay anybody off. What it means is that there's just going to be a heavier workload for the remaining staff.
It'll continue to be the heavy workload. So,
yes.
And you hope you don't lose any others. The work with parolees is really interesting to me. Our probation department has had a lot of trouble working with parole. That's, I don't know if you're working with parole with the, parole staff, or you just that parolees find you.
We're working with the parole staff, it's, they're mainly based out of Elmira, so they're in town once a week. But we've worked on establishing relationships with parole now for about 18 months. sometimes, I mean, I think we have an understanding that we're both coming at it from totally different positions, but we're pretty transparent with one another about what's going on. And so parole officers will refer someone who's going to be released to OAR to fill out the Endeavor House application. They, in some respects, especially on the early days of Endeavor House, it was helpful to have, before we had a case manager even, it was helpful to have parole stopping in at unexpected times to Endeavor House. It made us kind of adjust our programming, adjust our model a little bit, but also it really kind of helped us have an extra set of eyes on what was going on at the house. Now, having said that, we also, they're not doing technical violations right now to nearly the degree they did, which is wonderful in our opinion, because of COVID. So technical violations are sizably down, and OAR is going to be working with VERA and some other statewide organizations about some serious parole reform. I think that you all at the local level see it from the, certainly from the monetary point of view, that the percentage of parolees who are in our county jail on technical violations has increased as the percent, compared to the rest of the people who are incarcerated today. It's just an increasing number. So it costs county governments a lot of money. It also totally disrupts, technical violations can totally disrupt the work that everyone, the parolee most of all, has put into re-entering the community through employment, housing, all those things that are very hard for re-entering citizens. So we're excited to expand our work in working on state legislation that reforms parole and its impact on our clients.
That's great and long overdue. And do you work with our day reporting program? Is there a way that folks can, from parole, be referred to day reporting as another place to go?
I don't believe we've referred parolees to day reporting. I could be wrong because I wasn't the parolee case manager. It's an interesting notion. I know that we work with day reporting a lot with the College Initiative Upstate program. And we've worked very seamlessly with them. Of course, some of those day reporting and some of the others aren't up and running quite at full speed yet. And so the parolees, we're going to be referring, I think, more through our Healthy Workforce Consortium to challenge for soft skills, to on-the-job training grants with through the chamber. With Finger Lakes Reuse, definitely. They've been wonderful with our parolees over the last couple of years.
All right.
I'm sorry, I have another question.
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much, Deb. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you. Deb, I find myself wondering, our local jail population is down, state prison population is way down. Why are you seeing 30 people a day? What's going on?
Well, I think it's partly prevention. It's like OAR is perfectly located in the West End. Many of the people who are living in the encampments have had court involvement, if not incarceration. And so the walk-in, especially early mornings, is, and it'll get busier in the next 3 months, is for a warm place and a cup of coffee. It can be a very simple intervention, but once they trust us and come to us, then we help them with DSS applications, with moving them into more permanent or more appropriate housing, let's say, if they're interested in it, than homelessness. So we work, this is not work that OAR does by itself. It does it in collaboration with the outreach team, with with DSS, with a lot of folks. But I think we're very we're kind of a low barrier, not for profit.
But why is your population growing? There's fewer people coming out of prison right now.
we're still getting, we're still getting people. We get still about almost 80 parolees a year out of state prison. Maybe it'll change next year. Certainly the jail population is diminished sizably, which is, you know, a good thing. I think it's a little bit on the rise right now, but there are people who've been involved in these systems, and they aren't just magically employed and living in a nice place. So that they may be our clients from a year ago, from 2 years ago, and because of their mental health and addiction issues that are still untreated, need help again. So I don't know if that answers it. I mean, I think you're right that when we project these diminishing numbers out a ways, we won't be seeing as many people coming to us directly from incarceration as we have historically. But we're also seeing a growing number of people who are housing insecure and homeless in this community. And many of those people have had court involvement.
Thank you.
Did you say 80 parolees a year returning?
Yeah, it's anywhere between 70 and 80 per year who return home to Tompkins County. And then there are a few that have been granted permission to come to Tompkins County because of some family connection, rather than return to where their county of sentencing. Because traditionally a parolee's return to their county of sentencing.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. Are there any other questions? Thanks to Jill behind the black box, and Danielle. We're ready for TCA in a second, but I mean, this work is just absolutely critical, and I really appreciate all the questions, and I think that expresses the concern this legislature has with the work that you're all doing, and we really deeply grateful for the folks like you and your staffs that put everything out there for our residents.
Thank you. If there's any more information we can give you, just let us know.
All right, you bet.
Bye-bye.
I'm sure other questions might come. Thank you. And I'm sorry to Jim Boudreau, who was in chat and said, how long? And I said, another 10 minutes. We were really on track before. We'll be a few more minutes, Jim. So hang in there and go get a cup of coffee or something first. But so for Tompkins Community Action, where did I do?
I'm here.
There you are. Okay.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm Danielle Harrington. I am presenting tonight for Lee Dillon, who's out on leave. I just have a short PowerPoint, some slides to share with you, and then I can answer any questions.
Go right ahead. Thanks, Danielle.
All right. Okay. Just 1 second. Spend a lot of time on Zoom and I still fumble. It's so interesting.
All right, we see them. We can.
Okay. This is the recommended budget. We're not asking for any over targets.
Danielle, excuse me, are you able to make that into one, just one slide showing? So
yes, just 1 second. Let me, for some reason I had two, there it is.
All right, if you go to slideshow or presentation.
Yeah, for some reason. Let's see stuff. Sorry, one moment.
It's all right. And TCA is on page 21 for those looking in your book in section 5.
I practiced. Let's see. Okay.
Well, if you have it in front of you and you want to just talk us through it.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
why don't you go ahead and we'll just,
Okay. Not sure how to get it to just one. Is that better?
all right. There
Okay.
you go.
Sorry.
Excellent.
So the good thing is there's nothing really to share about this. We're not asking for any over targets. We're going to handle the decrease. I just want to just share some program highlights. Tompkins Community Action serves low-income individuals throughout the county with a bunch of programs, all designed to help move families and individuals out of poverty into a more stable living situation. We have Head Start classrooms. We serve 350 households. We have a partnership with the City of Ithaca School District. Our weatherization services includes Empower and some emergency heating and cooling programs. Housing services, we have a rental assistance division with a growing Housing Choice Voucher Section 8 program. We have some shorter term programs for assisting different levels of income with rent. We have our supportive housing portfolio that includes a tenant-based rental assistance program, which is a rent subsidy program. And our agency targets chronically homeless households for that. We're the only one in the state that does it that way. And we have our 55 units of supportive housing and a food pantry that still serves between 40 and 50 households per month, tailored to the household needs. Impacts of COVID-19, we didn't have any staff layoffs. We just moved quickly to try to be working as remotely as possible and implemented safety protocols for staff working on site. That would be supportive housing sites, emergency maintenance, and some other programs. What's important is that none of our programming stopped for any of the programs that I mentioned in the other slide. Services became remote. We do things by mail and phone. Now we're doing things by appointment. Our early Head Start and Head Start classrooms, those 5 sites switched to distance learning. The teachers made YouTube videos and put together food and packets that got delivered to people's homes, left on the door. And then they would FaceTime or do some sort of telephone to review what was in the packet. All of our classrooms are open now except for Longview. We got some one-time COVID funding to help increase safety, develop protocols for opening the classroom safely, improvements to ventilation and some disinfecting machines, foggers. They resemble like Ghostbuster backpacks that help sanitize everything. We use those in the classrooms. And we expanded activities for doing more programming with the kids outside, weather permitting, of course. Energy services, our weatherization activities stopped, so we shifted staff from that program over to maintenance projects to keep them working safely. We were still able to do emergency cooling work as a contractor for DSS for the air cooling for elderly disabled households. Our rental assistance programs continued remotely. Inspections are conducted only on empty units, and we use video or photos to address any safety concerns that come up. We're operating under a HUD waiver that allows us this flexibility until at least December 31st. And this New York State Homes and Community Renewal awarded us one-time security deposit funds so that we could help our voucher holders find housing by using cash security deposits rather than any other source. supportive housing. We shifted, encouraging our households to stay in place. We provided a lot of education about COVID-19. From April to the end of July, we did a meal delivery program. So the staff on site delivered meals Monday through Friday. It was a great way to get eyes on people, make sure they had what they needed. And our food pantry moved to an appointment-based contactless pickup and delivery service. If a household had transportation issues, we had the capacity to drive the food to them, leave it on their doorstep, and follow up that way. We were able to get $50,000 one-time grant for providing hygiene and household cleaning products to help mitigate some of the COVID-19 impacts for those households. Moving forward, we're not requesting any over targets this year. We can make up the county funding losses because of all of these one-time funding opportunities. And we were able to secure waivers for local match requirements for our Head Start grants, which allowed us to absorb the loss a little easier. We are not sure that those waivers will continue in the future, as many of us don't know what the pandemic's going to do. So this is the information that I wanted to share with you. Thank you for your patience while I got everything up and going. And that's what I wanted to share with you guys.
Thank you, Danielle. That was worth waiting for. We really appreciate that level of detail. It sounds like you've been amazingly creative. We really appreciate all of it. Amanda Champion.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Danielle. I'm sorry, lost my train of thought there. I think I must have missed, did you say something about the Head Start programs and where those are at? I'm sorry if I missed that.
Sure. No, so our Head Start classrooms, we have 5 sites, Groton, Dryden, on Hancock Street, and right next to us at our main office, the Harriet Center. Those are all open. There's smaller class size, and there's some pre-screening. You have an appointment arrival time with a health screening and a temperature check. And right now the kids don't have to wear masks. That might change. They're constantly updating and evolving what we need to do to keep everybody safe. But for right now, it's working what we're doing. The programming for the children that would have been at the Longview site, they've continued the distance, home visiting, that style of learning. So we're still serving everybody. It's just a little bit different than we have.
Right. My son went to the Longview site many, many years ago, and we loved it and he loved it. And we really appreciate you guys keeping that program going. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Martha?
Mike Lang.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment how much help at the Census Committee we've had from Tompkins Community Action. They've been a really helpful organization to help us get information to some of the hardest to reach people, particularly because we know that children tend to be undercounted. And they have had programs going on from the very beginning of the census effort. And we want to really say thank you to them for that.
Oh, thank you. I'll pass that along. We had quite a few staff active in that, still active in that for a few more weeks.
Another week or two.
Yeah, it's almost.
I had a question on the homes that are, Head Start and early Head Start. So those families had technology and internet service to be able to access remote learning?
Yes, most of them. A lot of families have smartphones, and what we did was they created little class with the YouTube things. Families that didn't want to do that or didn't feel comfortable doing that or didn't like to do the FaceTime, you see me, I see you, still had the conversations on the phone, and then the food delivery and everything happened. We really based it a lot on family preference at that time, because everybody was all over the place with what they wanted and what was important. And we just tried to keep some consistency with activities and food.
It's amazing what you do with a smartphone.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Danielle, and thanks to all of your staff for this level of work. It's amazing. It's really terrific. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Jim Boudreau, I'm so sorry you're the last one here tonight. And
I love being last.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Excellent. Welcome. And
Thank you.
Section, the first page in section 5 is animal control in the SPCA.
All right, and I'll get that up and running here. Everybody got that?
No, we don't see anything yet.
Okay.
Here, Shauna Black needs another dog, though. No. Two's enough, right?
Depends on who you ask. All right.
Sometimes I wonder if she needs to go to the sausage factory. She just ate my retainer as we're having our meeting in the background.
Whoops.
Nothing on the screen yet, huh?
No, sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Maybe John Mazzello can help you.
Or Kevin.
Or Kevin.
Dog ate your homework.
Jim, I could put the show up if you want to just talk me through the advancing the slides.
Absolutely, sure, that works too. Sorry about that.
Okay.
My technical consultant is almost here. I can't share my screen for some strange reason. Because they have to let you. Are you guys giving me access to share my screen? Yeah.
All right, somebody's got your screen. Good.
Who's the host?
There you go.
There we go. Okay. You got it? Okay, yay. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so first thing I'll say is I took a lot of flack last year for not putting pictures of animals in the slides. So you'll notice those as we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Yep, there you go. I do listen. So obviously we're asking for no changes. We completely understand the decrease in funding makes perfect sense to us. I think everybody who's familiar with the program knows that it's a twofold program, one of which is performs the critical prevention needed to sterilize that, and also at the same time we do the New York State required rabies vaccinations for 2 populations of cats in our community, feral or free roaming cats, and those belonging to low income and income qualified Tompkins County residents. And this helps us in 2 ways. It controls the unwanted pet population that comes into the shelter, and it provides rabies vaccinations, which is a threat to humans as well from a disease control perspective. So our stats for the last 8 years have been we've vaccinated over 12,000 vaccinated and sterilized cats from 2011 to 2019. Last year, and a lot of the stats obviously that we provide to you usually annually at this meeting are based on last year. So last year we did 1,988 cats through our program, and we administered a total animal-wide 2,123 total rabies vaccinations were administered. And then of those cats as a subset, 236 were free roaming and feral. Obviously from a COVID-related perspective, and I will stop. I don't need to share the screen anymore. From a COVID-related perspective, we understand that there's going to be some impact to this program, but luckily there has not been a tremendous impact. We did during the shutdown, even though we continued to operate as an essential service, we didn't cease operations. We did we basically moved most things to appointments. So if you had to surrender a pet, if you wanted to adopt a pet, we did those under very controlled by appointment standards in consultation with other animal welfare organizations working through the same issues. We did, for this program, for the spay and neuter program, we did suspend this program for 8 weeks we see about 32 to 40 individual animals every Tuesday at these clinics, which you can imagine might involve 40 plus people, individuals. So until we had a system on how to sort of manage that number of people on a weekly basis, or coming to the shelter in a safe way, using all the guidelines and things we had to put into place, we did suspend that. We were able to, after restarting the program, we were able to add 4 additional clinics. We wound up doing 2 a week to sort of play catch up. So roughly about 256 animals didn't get done in those 8 weeks of time, but we were able to get about 115 caught up in the additional clinics that we added. So the good news for this program to some degree is, we pretty much scale it to the funding that we have available. So moving into 2021 and towards the end of this year, we'll obviously take the reduction that we see here into account. We also definitely anticipate the largest amount of funding for this program comes from the New York State Animal Population Control Program, which we have no word on in terms of, we do know of another shelter in Chemung County who's been waiting about 4 or 5 months already for an answer on funding. We don't anticipate seeing any, if much, funding from that program in 2021. In 2008, when there was the last economic crisis, the state sort of co-opted those funds for budget deficits. So we don't know if the same will happen, but our hopes are not particularly high for them. But our focus for the program will definitely just still remain Tompkins County residents with low income or inability to pay for these things, and we'll continue to do that work based on the best possible way we can at that time. But like I said, I think there in calendar year 2020, I think even COVID considered, we'll probably see very little impact to the program. And we've actually seen, as a side note, very little impact to our staff, very little. I mean, we've continued to work. We've seen adoption numbers very similar to last year, even with the by appointment. In some instances, even higher than last year. I think we've all heard through other media sources, people went out because they were at home and got their pandemic pet and all that good stuff. And we did see a very similar situation at the Tompkins County SPCA. Our major concern going into the whole thing was an uptick in the surrender of pets locally in Tompkins County. That was our major area of concern and fear. And we did start a food pantry to help with that local need, which we always had on a more informal basis. We would do it in conjunction with our spay and neuter clinics, but because those weren't happening, we did them as its own standalone service. But actually, knock wood for right now, our intakes have actually been down over last year. So we've actually seen less pets. So the good news is we've seen the same, if not a slightly larger increase in adoptions and a decrease in surrenders. So an overall population decrease as it stands right now, as of, September 30th, if you will, 2020. We don't know if that'll continue, but I will say the 2 main reasons for surrender in Tompkins County have always been a lack of time to spend with the animal, which this has solved in some ways, and an inability to pay for the animal's care. So that's always something that's out there and looming, that second part. But the good news is there's been no evidence of that to date, which was both surprising and relieving.
That's good. Keep knocking on wood. Any questions? I see Amanda.
Best presentation ever. The dogs and cats were awesome. Jason, take note. You should have more dogs and cats. And
I think it was Ann Corman last year who questioned why there were no dogs or cats in the presentation.
Yeah, there's Ann's cat right now.
I did have the cows on mine, but
you did have cows. Yeah.
We don't adopt cows.
I also had a bear on there in honor of Dominic, but we didn't get to that slide on my presentation.
I don't have any questions. Just thank you for the work you do.
My pleasure.
I love the SPCA, so thank you.
So do I.
Anybody else? Did I understand, just a second, Ann, did I understand you said you had food pantry, is that for dogs? I mean, for animals, pet food?
Yeah, we typically were doing it on Tuesdays in conjunction with the spay and neuter clinic, because that's when we were seeing most of our low income clientele for that thing. We started doing it on Saturdays. What we were doing, we've done a few different things over the years, but what we were doing is people often donate things that we can't use. So we get all of our dry food donated, but we need canned, as donations, we need canned dog food and canned cat food. If people donate dry cat or dry dog food, unless we've specifically asked for it, we can't use it. If you can imagine, 200 animals on different diets, it's not a pleasant experience. So we redistribute, we take those large bags of food, and we were getting them from like Target and Walmart and Wegmans, where they were having big bags break open. We've redirected the big box stores and places that are larger, Agway even. We've redirected them to the actual food pantries in town, figuring that if people are going to the food pantry for food for their families, it makes sense for there to be one-stop shopping where they can also get pet-related supplies. We just are redistributing the stuff that gets dropped off to our location on Hanshaw Road, where people will come through on Saturday. We'd have a drive-through sort of system where they just sort of come in and they ask for either cat or dog food. And a lot of times you have miscellaneous toys or bedding and, just things that we don't use that we can give out to people who need it.
Okay. And Corman.
So Jim, I think with the 4 kittens in my background here, I think that makes an even number of cats and dogs, because I think you had a few more extra dogs, so thank you for remembering that. Also, I wanted to say a few people I know were able to take advantage of the pet food pantry that you had. So thank you very much for doing that. Good.
Yeah, I mean, we anything we can use, we're happy to. And like I said, we know that most of the human service places that are providing that service are also doing pet stuff, which is great.
And I will warn people though, one time I dropped off some food at the SPCA and a cat made me adopt it. So there is that danger there.
Always the danger of walking in that place.
Yeah. Annie, you're too easy.
Aslan.
So I was going to concur with Jim there on the food pantry. He tried desperately to get us to do it at GIAC when we were having a food pantry. But because there were a whopping 2 of us working, by the time we got back to him, it was too late at that point. But I thought it was a brilliant idea to do that. And so thank you for making that happen for people who come for regular food and get food for their pets as well.
Yeah, I mean, the more resources people could have, and I mean, every organization that does this, and GIAC was in the same boat, right? Your hands are full. You've got stuff coming through the door, and it was it's amazing how quickly the strangeness of the situation becomes normal, right?
Martha, I had a question.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. Jim, how did or has the pandemic affected your volunteer program?
Great question. I was supposed to mention that. We've actually basically barred our volunteers from coming into the building. I know that sounds, I'm joking, but we had about 225 active volunteers on any given month at any given time, filling a host of shifts. We literally have almost, I won't say ended the program because it's not ended, but 2 things. One, just in terms of limiting density to our building, and there's no way to manage them in that volume. And number 2, with the COVID related questions and everything that we're doing for anyone who enters the building, managing that number of volunteers to come in would be really difficult, to say the least. But what we have continued to do is we have a lot of tasks that are sort of single person tasks, like surgical pack wrapping, or doing laundry, or socializing some of our shy cats, or dog walking. So what we've done is we've taken a very limited number of people, and to be honest, the demographic of our volunteer is sort of that demographic that you hear about that is most at risk, of there being complications from COVID. So I would say about 60% of them at the very onset were like, we're canceling my shift, I'm not coming in, because of the fear that something might happen. Obviously, as things have changed over time and people feel a little bit safer about things, that has changed. But we're sort of relying on a core group of very specialized volunteers to help us with very specific tasks, many of which they can do on their own with no interaction or contact with anybody else. Both the lack of volunteers and the lack of the building being open to public. I mean, we used to see about 11 to 1,200 visitors, not including volunteers, to the SPCA every month. That's down to about 10%. We see about 100 to 125 people a month now, and most of them are there specifically only to adopt the animal that they've worked with the adoption counselors to do. So it's very different. The building is certainly not as lively. It's certainly not as, you're not seeing families down there with their kids to look at the pets and all that stuff. So it's that, and you're not getting the interaction with a lot of the volunteers that you used to, but it's just the way it has to be. And we hope to see our volunteers back in larger numbers eventually, but because a few of them are taking on sort of the broader responsibilities that many used to perform, right? So the burden is sort of shifted from a lot doing something to a few doing a lot. And we don't want to burn people out either, but it's working, which is good. But until we can see increases in density, it's just not feasible for the size facility that we have and the spaces that we've had to limit certain rooms to, only 1 or 2 people maximum. We're used to have several volunteers in there at one time, and it's just not possible.
Thank you.
This thing has certainly changed everything that we do. So
yeah. Well, it's my first global pandemic, so I hope I've learned a few things from it. So,
and let's hope it's our last.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else for Jim? All right. Thanks, Jim. Thank
you all.
Sorry,
good to see you all.
No selfie this year.
Bummer.
Next year.
Next time.
All right. I think that's a wrap. Thank you all very, very much for a kind of intense evening, and take a break, and we'll see you back here tomorrow afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.